Welcome to Adventures Gone Mad, your critical look at D&D books. I am Kyle W. here with my favoritist host.
Hello, everybody. It's Kyle.
Hi, Kyle. How are you doing today?
I have been better. I unfortunately got sick this week. We're a little delayed on recording because of my illness. And funny note, I was starting to get sick and I thought I was just having allergies. So I went to a big party that we have here with a bunch of people called Lumber Twink. And I went to that wearing my new Jordans.
Oh, yeah, of course. Got it. You have to.
Yeah, I mean, I had to wear my new Jordans, which looked great. And, you know, it was I was in a onesie, which is, you know, always fun.
Right, which was the theme of the party, to be clear.
The theme of the party, right, is part of the theme.
Yeah, you're not normally wearing a onesie. It was the theme.
No, normally I do not wear a onesie. It's a union suit that is tie-dyed, so it's very bright.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, I was having a really great time, but apparently my allergies were not just allergies. I actually had a cold, might have been giving a cold to a lot of people at a very big party. So I might have been patient zero.
Wonderful.
So, and then also as a note, as a part of the podcast, if you hear some sniffles and some coughs and some other things, that is me still sort of recovering from this because I'm not completely done with it.
Well, I tried to edit those things out, but, you know, sometimes it's impossible. And hey, that fits because everyone I know except me is sick. So
it was me. I was the one who did it.
You were the one that made everyone sick.
I was the one who made everyone sick.
Yeah, and you did sound terrible. So I don't think we could have recorded. That would have not been great. So hopefully we get this out on the day that I want to get it out. But we'll see.
Yeah, even in our game on Wednesday, I was still sounding pretty interesting. So
for me. So today we are doing the Lost Tomb of Martek, the third adventure in the Desert of Desolation series. I have been, basically whenever we do one of these modules, I have been getting the module in paper, unless it's exceedingly expensive. For the Desert of Desolation, the actual, like on eBay, the actual Desert of Desolation book is actually pretty expensive. I think it sells for like $70 to $100.
Oh dear Lord!
But the actual independent modules themselves are not that bad. And I actually ended up getting the Lost Tomb of Martek on eBay for like, I think my bid was eventually like $15. It was like pretty low. Most of these modules are about $20-ish on eBay, especially like the more popular ones. When I got this one, I was a little surprised. Let's just say I didn't look at the actual auction very closely, because when I got it, it had this on the back, and this is good podcasting. I'm showing you on the video. Certificate of Authenticity.
Oh dear Lord.
So this says, Certificate of Authenticity. The above named item you now possess comes from the collection of John D. Ratliff. These items were acquired during the last 30 years of John's amateur and professional involvement with role-playing games, many years of that time spent as an employee of TSR and Wizards of the Coast.
Oh my God.
So I had stumbled into an auction. I guess this person auctioned off, or at least this auction agent on behalf of this person, auctioned off their collection. They're from working with TSR. I looked up John D. Ratliff. He worked on, it actually says right here, among his notable design works are Unsung Heroes for Dragonlance, Children of the Night, Return to the Keep of the Borderlands, The Hero Builder's Guidebook, Reverse Dungeon, Standing Stone, and Song of Silence. He also worked on the 3rd edition D&D Player's Handbook, DMG, and the core rulebook for Eberron.
Wow.
This is from his personal collection, so I'm using a book from that belonged to a TSR employee at some point.
Yeah, like he was a Wizards of the Coast / TSR pro. Like, okay, cool, I guess.
So yeah, I should have, and you know, at that point when I saw it, I was like, wait, can I? Because I got this really cheap. I was like, can I pick up a bunch more stuff for really cheap? Because they're selling this entire collection at once. And I went, and they're not selling any more of his stuff. So they like kind of, it looks like they put everything on eBay at once and then sold it.
Okay. I guess that makes sense.
So this book has a little bit of the book that I'm using has a little bit of a story.
Nice. I'm using the PDF version because I'm cheap sometimes, even though I buy Jordans.
Yeah. Well, this is not, not an easily. Yeah. So this adventure is available on DM's Guild for $5. It also has been uploaded to archive.org. I noticed. I don't know if someone just did that or if it's like an official thing. This is the first module I've seen up there. I know Dragon Magazine is up on archive.org. So I don't know. Maybe some modules are up there. It might be worth looking, but if you want a free copy of this, it is on archive.org. Just Google Lost Tomb of Martek. So today we're going through the third Desert of Desolation adventure. This is also written by Tracy Hickman. This is just credited to Tracy Hickman. The last adventure was credited to someone else as well. This one is just credited to Tracy Ray Hickman. For some reason, it has his middle name. This is the third adventure, The Desert of Desolation. It was printed in 1983 and then later collected in the Desert of Desolation book like the other two. We've done a few 1983 adventures, but just quickly going through this again, the number one movie was Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Number one album was Thriller, and Miss Pac-Man was the number one video game at the time. Normally, we would go through notes on the author, but we have done this is the third in a row from Tracy Hickman. So if you want to hear more about Tracy Hickman and you haven't checked out our Pharaoh episode, you definitely want to go back and listen to that one. And yes, this was reprinted in the 1987 Desert of Desolation compilation that collected all three of these books. All right, so before we get into it, Kyle, what is your synopsis of this crazy ass adventure?
Yeah, crazy ass is probably a good one. I was thinking that my synopsis is trust in the process that is Martek.
You got to trust the process.
Like Martek has a plan, just go with it.
Yeah, so the whole trope in D&D where people are like, yeah, a wizard did it, shut up. This is the wizard did it adventure.
Yeah, this is totally the wizard did it, shut up.
Yeah, now that you've been to Egypt for 2 modules, it's time to get really, really weird.
Yeah, let's just say demi-planes. That's a good thing to start with. So,
yeah, I expected when I was reading this, it was like, okay, it's the third adventure. There's going to be more Egypt stuff. You're going to, I don't know, maybe you'll go into a giant pyramid and fight like a big statue of Set or something. That was my expectation going into this. We'll get more into it later, but this is a very weird adventure. I have heard the term funhouse adventure be used for adventures like this, and I think it applies. There's a lot of weird magic, demi-planes. This gets really weird.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting to read because I didn't know anything about that, and then when I started reading it, I was like, wait, what? What's going on right now? But I kind of dig it. Like, I still sort of love it in its own right, and it's just I would not want to run this, I don't think. Well, at least if I was going to run it, I probably would run it a little differently. But yeah, no, it's super fun.
Right. And when you say you don't want to run it, that's not because you don't like it. It's because of the complexity of the adventure. Right.
Yeah. Complexity is there's a lot to keep track of. And obviously we'll get to that, but there's a lot to keep track of, and you could get really lost, especially with first edition. It's not like, I don't know, there's just a lot of stuff that you're going to have to sort of figure out and keep track of. And it's going to be difficult on you.
So yeah, right up front on the cover, you can kind of tell that there's something different going on with this adventure, because the cover depicts a weird skyship looking, kind of a little sci-fi looking boat on top of, it looks like ice or glass or something like that, and then there's a purple worm breaking through the ground. Now, Pharaoh has like a pyramid and a pharaoh on it, and Oasis of the White Palm has a genie on it. So it's pretty obvious like what you're getting with those adventures, but this is like, what is happening here? This is the third Desert of Desolation adventure? Like, this is weird.
Yeah.
It almost looks like they're in space or something because it's at night. But it's like, what do you... I don't know what to expect from just this cover. The other two, you kind of know what to expect.
It's also interesting because I was just looking at the artists for this. And so Jim Holloway, who we've talked about before, is the cover for this one. Mm-hmm. But some of the inside art, I think, is Jim Holloway. But the other artists, I don't know who it is. And they don't say who it is. So I'm actually doing some last minute lookups of like, wait, who actually did the art for this. There are some signed, like a lot of them are signed, but in artist fashion, they are hard to read. So I'm actually trying to figure out who actually did some of the cover art, the inside art. The cover art is Jim Holloway. Inside art, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I see the signature here. We have been running into this problem with the early adventures where they don't do very well with crediting the artist.
Yeah, they really don't.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the end on page 32. It says credits, design, Tracy Ray Hickman, editing Curtis Smith. There's no artist listed anywhere.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't, maybe I'll do a little bit more research later and maybe I can figure out who it is. But, just looking at like Google and Wikipedia and stuff like that, it's not completely obvious who that is.
Yeah. Also, to know, I just did a Control F on the PDF and the word artist does not appear anywhere in this PDF.
Yeah. So it's one of those sort of, and, some of the art in here is really actually quite good. It sort of gives you a little bit of an idea as to, because there's so much weird stuff going on in this module that it's very good to have illustrations of some of it. So it's nice to have.
Stop time.
So I cut out a pretty long discussion between Kyle and I on the artist. To be clear, the cover artist is Jim Holloway, and the interior art appears to be done by Harry Quinn, whose signature is on most of the art. There's not really much official confirmation anywhere that Harry Quinn was the interior artist, and he doesn't really appear to have much of a post-internet presence, so it's a little bit of guesswork on some unofficial sources that we're seeing and the signature, but we believe that it's Harry Quinn. Unfortunately, modules at this time don't credit the artist like they should, so we have to do a little bit of guesswork.
Time begins to move.
I cut out a lot of us looking that up, by the way, but
yeah, I assume so.
Yeah, this person, Harry Quinn, doesn't have a very strong post-internet presence. We found some blog articles talking about him, and basically I'm looking at the Grognardia blog right now, and the blog post is essentially like, hey, does anyone know anything about Harry Quinn? I like his art, and there's not much about him.
Yeah, and I would say about 90% of the illustrations in this module are from him. So he did most of them. The inside art of his is mostly his.
Yeah.
So it's sort of sad that we don't get to know too much about this poor guy.
Yeah, and then the most that I could find is this comment on this Grognardia blog post from 2011 by someone named Steve, who says, Harry was married to Terry Quinn, who worked in TSR's PR department. In those years, if you got hired at TSR, the company would always try to find a slot for your spouse or significant other too.
Okay.
I don't recall which of them was hired first. Harry did interior and BAPS for a few covers. He got laid off in the 83-84 purges. If I recall correctly, Terry got elected to Lake Geneva City Council.
Okay.
So, great assault, because that is a random comment on a blog post.
Yeah, so who knows if that's correct or not, but it's intriguing, to say the least.
Yes. So at the very least, these early modules just do not, the disrespect for artists, we all kind of know about that, but come on, these early modules don't even tell you the names of the people that did the art.
Yeah, and if you think about they're in terms of just real estate in the module, in terms of page real estate, it's about maybe a quarter of the module is taken up by illustrations.
Yeah, there's some full page illustrations in this module.
Yeah, so it's sort of sad to see that they're just not respecting it nearly as much as they really should.
Yeah, it shouldn't be this hard to find out who the artist is.
Yeah, and as I've said before, 10-year-old Kyle, I was really big into art and I was really big into these illustrations, and half the time that's what I was staring at, not the words on the page, but the illustrations in the modules or on the covers.
Right. The illustrations sold a lot of these adventures.
Yeah, it really did.
And it's just kind of a shame that it's that hard to figure it out. Even in 2025, when I have the Library of Alexandria via Google in front of me, it is still hard to find out who these artists are.
Yeah.
A little bit of a tangent, but I've been reading the Shadow Dark core book recently. And at the very front of the core book, that book will basically say, here's the artist, and they did illustrations on this page, this page, this page, this page. I'm glad that we have learned that lesson.
Yeah, I'm glad too. I mean, it's a really important thing to me, and I think to a lot of people, like how important those illustrations are and the art that's in them.
Yeah. So, continuing on, unless you want to talk about the art.
I do want to talk about the cover a little bit. So if you've been reading through all three of these modules, there's always a random encounter with the purple worm that you may or may not get. And the illustration in the cover that I have is that purple worm. So you finally get the purple worm, an illustration of the purple worm that you may or may not have encountered throughout any of these. And you're not guaranteed to see that purple worm, but it's fun to see.
You're not. And the we did talk about this in Oasis of the White Palm, but one of the rumors that it talks about in that adventure, it says, hey, in another part of the desert, there's like the sky goes on forever and people use airships, which was talking about this. If you're paying attention, if you saw that rumor, you saw the cover of this, you might be like, oh, that's what this is.
Yeah.
And going back to that rumor, it's a little bit of a falsehood because the sky looks like it ends because everything is made out of glass.
Right.
But
spoiler alert.
Yeah, exactly. But you just see this purple worm breaking through some glass or ice or something, and it's just the purple worm is certainly if you're playing D&D at this point, you know that's a pretty high level thing to be fighting. So that at least will tell you a lot about the adventure. The cover also has a little synopsis here that I kind of like. It says it says Sky Sea, and I always want to say Sky Sea because of One Piece has an arc called Skypiea. So I keep wanting to say Sky Sea.
Sky Sea.
Skimming across the Sky Sea, you race against time to save the desert peoples. 1,000 years ago, the wizard Martek knew you would come for his sphere of power. Are you the heroes of his prophecy or its victims? So that kind of tells you what's going on at the adventure. We come to page 2, which is a thing that we note about Tracy Hickman adventures is that there is a lot of stuff to read out loud, a lot of prose.
Yep.
So there's about 8 paragraphs on page 2 for the introduction. Essentially, the way that this adventure starts is this adventure presumes that you did Pharaoh and Oasis of the White Palm. Because in Oasis of the White Palm, basically that adventure is about dealing with an efreeti that you released in Pharaoh. And this adventure is about the fallout of freeing a djinn to fight the efreeti.
Right.
Because it essentially says a war rages across the desert because a few weeks ago an efreeti was released, and then you released a djinn to fight them. But the problem is they are evenly matched, and they are having a Dragon Ball Z battle in the sky that is negatively affecting the desert and the people that live there.
Yeah, it's like giant. I mean, they're basically like throwing fireballs, shooting lightning, winds, rain, every piece of element you can imagine, and it's just wreaking havoc on everyone living there.
And it basically says there's legend that Martek has something that can stop them called the Sphere of Power to be released from his tomb. And the key to releasing that are the 3 gems that you got in the first and second adventure.
So make sure you got those 3 gems.
So one thing you absolutely have to get those gems to do this adventure, which is kind of, I don't know if it's weird, but if you didn't read the third adventure and you ran the first 2 adventures, that might be kind of, it does warn you that you need them in the first 2 adventures, but
you're going back, like if you don't have them, you're going back and doing whatever you need to do to get those stars, because you need them. You need those 3 stars in order to do the adventure.
Right. If you're doing a campaign and this is like a living world, there's no reason why you can't go back and look for them. So
right.
It is very clear that you need them. One thing that's weird about this adventure, at least the intro, is that it kind of gives you information. It has the GM give you information about the Sphere of Power, which the players might not have got between the adventures.
Yeah, I agree with that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, because it says, so I'm not going to read this whole introduction because it's very long, but it says, but the legend of Martek speaks further. It tells of the 3 star gems and Martek's hidden tomb. With the star gems, Martek's Sphere of Power can be released from his tomb. The sphere is the only way known to save the desert people from total destruction. So I guess this introduction presumes the players found that out between the adventures. I think it would have been better to just see that somewhere. Yeah, so there's exposition here where the DM basically tells the players like what they need to do, which is not a bad thing. I know as a DM I often do that, it's not very uncommon in D&D for players to be like, hey, what are we doing? Like, what is the point of what we're doing right now? But with how many the way that Tracy Hickman's writing has NPCs tell you things, it's kind of weird that this is exposition in the introduction and it wasn't explicitly told to you before by an NPC.
Yeah, it is kind of surprising that he doesn't have those little nuggets laid out in the other modules.
I believe some of the rumors in the other modules might have had that. I know they mentioned Martek, and Martek has been mentioned at least in the second adventure, but it's kind of weird that exposition is there. It seems like a little out of character for Tracy Hickman's writing. I was a little surprised. So yeah, your party is tasked to go find the Lost Tomb of Martek and release or use the Sphere of Power, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Moving on to page 3, we basically have the same exact page from the previous 2 adventures that talk about notes to the Dungeon Master and how the adventure is kind of laid out.
Yeah, I have to say I pretty much skipped most of this. I sort of, because it's the same thing. The only thing is at the very end of it, it does sort of talk about what's going on with the efreeti and the djinn fighting.
Yeah, it essentially says like, hey, these two have been preparing to fight each other for a long time. Like the djinn was basically sealed away to fight the efreeti, and because of that, they are evenly matched and neither one can win.
Right.
And it essentially says like, if you get involved with the fight between them, they will attack you for a lot of damage.
Yeah, the fallout of trying to like deal with being on one side or the other. It's like you're trying to fight the djinn or you're trying to fight the efreet. They're probably going to toast the both of you. So, both of them will toast you.
Yeah. So this technically doesn't predate anime because it was happening in Japan at this time, but they are having an anime fight in the air.
Well, and on the ground too. So it's like it's on the ground, it's on the air, it's everywhere around the desert, and you cannot influence it.
Yeah, it says if you try to attack the efreeti, he will flame strike you for 6d8 damage. And if you try to attack the djinn, he will lightning bolt you for 1d6 times 24 damage.
It's 114 at its most.
And yeah, that's pretty swingy. If you do 1d6 and multiply that, it's a 1 in 6 chance of doing 144 damage. Like, they're going to learn their lesson not to interfere with this very quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, there wouldn't be... I suspect if the players did try to interfere with it, they would attack the efreeti over the djinn because you talked to the djinn in the last adventure and he gives you treasure.
Yeah.
Very obvious he's good.
Right. Yeah. But, you might have an evil party. So I guess he's trying to make sure that, like, if you have an evil party and they start going after the djinn, they're really messed up. Because actually, it's funny. The djinn does way more damage than the efreet. So if you have an evil party going after the djinn, he's really going to mess you up.
Yeah, true. I would love to hear. I wish. When we go through these adventures, I just wish we had like. This is like the video game person coming out of me, but I wish we had like metadata. I would love to just see like the djinn attacked this many people, this many campaigns were evil, blah blah blah. I would just love to see that.
Yeah. Like we have a whole like, hey, how did this happen with a bunch of adventuring parties?
I wonder if TSR had that like data from polling people, but like I don't. That seems like a thing that was too organized for what I know about TSR. From what I've read, it seems like a little too organized for them.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to push things out. I don't think that they were thinking about like, how do we over time, how do these adventures like run and how many people run them and how do they get run? Who knows how many, I mean, it'd be interesting to find out like just how much playtesting there was for a module like this.
Well, I know from what I read, not this specific module, but they did have playtesters that they got from Dragon Magazine, and they would mail them things and it would take months to get it back, because it's like you mail someone something, they have to read it, they have to run it for their group and then write up what happened and mail you back. There's no email.
Right.
There's no like Survey Monkey link for them to fill out. So
right, and they're trying to get this out within like 6 months or whatever. So how much do they really, Oh yeah, I know we played that, and they send all the test material back and like, we already published it.
Yeah, and from Zeb Cook's adventures, the way that he play tested, which I'm going to assume other people at TSR did this, is he would walk into the other room and say, hey, this is what's going to happen in the room. How would you deal with it? And another person would say, oh, I would do this. And that's kind of how he play tested, which is really not a great way of doing it. But They did what they did.
Yeah, at least you have something, I guess.
Yeah, running your idea past someone's not a bad idea, but using that as playtesting, not the same as we would do it now. So moving on to the Desert Wilderness, page 4 is the exact same thing as the previous adventures. You're once again in the Desert of Desolation, which is weird. The sand here is not like normal sand. It's ashy and really coarse and fine. Nothing super notable about the random encounter table for the Desert Wilderness. And actually, in this adventure, I think you will spend the least amount of time in the Desert Wilderness over the last two.
Yeah, it's almost like they just almost took whatever they had in Pharaoh and Ace of the Right Palm and just copied it here because they look almost exactly the same. The only difference is the special encounter table gets different, which is on the next page.
Yes, and then that's the thing to talk about. So the purple worm, obviously, it's the same one from the cover. He just might attack you here. The other thing is that you might run into the efreeti and the djinn basically fighting in the air over you, which is like I really like that concept. And I'll once again go back to anime Dragon Ball Z fight in the air, because that's how I'm going to think about it. But just the idea of these two really powerful magical beings fighting each other to the point where they're like negatively impacting the environment around them is really cool. And I think that's where this adventure should just start.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm running this adventure, I am starting on random encounter number 3.
Yeah.
I'm not even letting it be random. Just do it.
Because you want the player characters to see this. You want to see this whole thing happening. And there's, that random encounter, you encounter it and you don't do anything. There's nothing that's like, you could, and then you'll get flamestrike or you'll get lightning bolt. So that's something to think about. But there's also, it's in the distance and you see this whole thing happening and you could just sort of look at it in awe, which is kind of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. And there's nothing better for D&D than showing the players how they impacted the world with their actions. And granted, this is a little bit of on a rail because it's going to happen if you're doing this adventure. Like, I don't think you could get here and be like, okay, well, because of decisions that the characters made, the efreeti is not here. I guess technically you could have missed the efreeti, and it would be weird. Like, the DM would have to make an adjustment and just be like, the players are going to the Tomb of Martek to find treasure. That would be weird.
Yeah, I don't know how that would even work, because the whole point of this is that, the efreet has to have gotten away somehow. So if the player characters didn't do it, someone else has freed it. That's the only way I could say that would work, or it makes sense. So it's like, okay, well, we didn't do it, but we got to correct what's going on in the world because there's an efreet and it's destroying everything. So, and if they didn't free the djinn, it would be like, well, someone else freed the djinn, I guess.
But yeah, if you're running D&D, like, showing your players that they're impacting the world with what they're doing is like a very good thing. It's like what makes D&D, like, it's the thing that makes role-playing games special over just playing like Monopoly or any other board game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's hard to do in a video game, right? And really show that impact. And here it's actually fairly easy to do it because we don't have to sit there and write code to figure out what the PCs have done or not done. You can sort of do everything on the fly and say like, oh yeah, all this happened and it's all your fault.
Yeah, I remember listening to, and I think about this with tabletop RPGs all the time, but I remember listening to an interview from someone who was involved with the TV show Angel. And it talks about, like, the last couple seasons, there's, like, a lot of really crazy big stuff happening. And he was a special effects person. And, they would be like, they would come to him and they would be like, okay, well, so in this season, we're going to do this thing where fire rains from the sky and there's meteors outside and they hit the ground and explode. And he would have to be like, that will cost $100 million. Here's how you can actually do this. Like, he had to be the person to be like, I know you have big plans, but we don't have money for that.
Right.
And then he talks about, like, later on when they went to do the Angel comic, there was no special, they could do anything because there's no special effect. It's just paint on a page. There's no, like, special effects, right?
Yeah. There's no budget. There's no budget where you have to actually show those effects.
Right. And because the medium changed, what they were allowed to do with the story changed because they were limited by being a TV show and not having the money to do even though the story called for it, they don't have the money to do that, right? So they have to, like, rewrite how the story works because you can't do that. But you don't have, there's no budget for TTRPGs. It's just your imagination.
Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons why anime is so big in Japan, because you don't have to spend so much money to make animation versus actually trying to make crazy epic stuff that happens in manga happen in real life. You know, Attack on Titan, they did as a live action, and it was kind of a disaster because it's just too hard to show that. Whereas like Attack on Titan on the anime was super, it was easy to do all that stuff. Fairly straightforward animation-wise.
Right, when you apply something fantastical to the real world, it always looks weird, but, if you're watching Avatar The Last Airbender, you can craft a world where people shoot fire out of their heads and make it look good.
Right.
Whereas, like, if you watch the live-action Avatar The Last Airbender, you think, oh, that is a normal person shooting fire out of their heads. Like, it's a little...
Right. It's hard to do right. It's hard, and it's expensive to do right. Whereas, like, in animation or in comic book form, it's super easy, and then we're doing all this within our imagination, so it's even easier.
Right. And I feel like this adventure really gets into that, because there's just like I mean, I know we've mentioned there's wild and crazy stuff happening in this adventure, but like this is a very, let's just say the budget for this live action adventure would be a lot.
Yeah.
And it would start with explosions in the sky and lightning bolts as these two, magical creatures fight.
You gotta have Netflix money for this one.
Yeah. Also, I do really like the illustration on page 5 of the efreeti getting the face that he is making. It looks exactly like the efreeti on the cover of is that the must? No, which
DM's guide? The
DM's guide. That's the DM's guide, right? I was thinking the statue that you have.
Yeah. Which is the DM's guide.
Yeah, the same face. It's the efreeti with the same face, and he is like has a very shocked face as he's getting, I think, electrocuted. I don't know, but I've said it before. I love genies, so I love seeing this art of these two genies battling.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So yeah, that's essentially, definitely, if you're running this adventure, I think just start with this random encounter. And then this...
Do a little bit of the other random encounters, but make sure at some point in time you get this, you just have this happen.
Yeah, and it says, the start of this adventure, it says basically, hey, read the introduction and make sure the players have the Star of Mo Pilar, the Star of Shah Pilar, and the Star of Khan Pilar. So they have all three of the gems.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not going to get very far. All right. So on the next page, page 6, we have the Table of Random Rumors, which most of them are true because you're on the last adventure. So there's only one false rumor.
Yeah, only one false rumor.
Oh, one thing I wanted to know that I can't believe I didn't notice this, and maybe I did and I made a comment on it before, but on page 6, when it talks about the general items that you have, it says... Like, I noticed it says, you have one writ of authority granting you permission to be in the Desert of Desolation. It weighs 1 GP. And I was like, is that a typo? And then I saw, like, it gives other things in GP weight. And I looked through other books, and this, like, AD&D tells you how much things weigh in gold.
Yeah, that's
like, I didn't notice that before.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, that is in fact the standard of measurement for measuring how much things weigh is by gold pieces.
All right. Well, I can only assume, because we're talking about the world of Greyhawk here, but I can only assume there is 1 gold somewhere in the world of Greyhawk that is the standard measurement for how much a gold weighs.
You are thinking of the European Union and the metric stick that they have in France. I think it is that is the standard of which all metrics are made. It is a meter stick.
I'm gonna write a adventure about someone stealing the gold piece, and you have to get the gold piece back. If you're an adventure writer, feel free to use that and credit me. Oh no, they stole a gold piece. Who cares? It's just a gold piece. No, it's the gold piece.
No. It's the gold piece. That's the standard of measurement that we have for everything.
Now gold is not worth anything. It's like the Rick and Morty where he makes $1 equals $0 or whatever. It's like
yeah.
So anyways, I can't believe I didn't notice that until I was reading through this. I was like, wait, is that a typo? And then I went through some other books and saw that that's just a way that they measure things, which is like, granted, it tells you like there is a limit to how much you can carry in gold. So that makes sense. It just makes things easier. But it's just kind of like, at first I thought it was a typo.
It is a funny standard of measurement. And like, yeah, in other role-playing games, like when you played GURPS, everything went back to pounds and all that stuff. But yeah, in first edition D&D, it's all, how much can you weigh in gold?
And yeah, so a thing to know, I already kind of mentioned this, but the desert here is not, the desert wilderness part is not as big as the last 2 adventures. And it is inevitable that the players will end up in a place called the Sea of Glass.
Yeah, if you look at the maps, everything that you're heading towards goes to the Sea of Glass.
Yeah, which is on page 6. It talks about the Sky Sea, which is the Sea of Glass. So after the rumors, like basically the first thing it tells you about is the Sky Sea. We want to go? I don't know if there's any of these rumors we need to talk about.
I mean, basically the rumors are all like, what's really you're going to see later on in the module, basically.
Yeah, and so I have noticed these adventures do tell you how to deal with the rumors. Like, one of the previous ones says, like, all the humans you run into know a rumor. This one says to roll a d6 and secretly tell each PC in the party a rumor. So I guess it makes the assumption that you heard this at the Oasis of the White Palm.
Yeah, for whatever reason, they already know these rumors.
Yeah. And only one of them is false. I still don't know how I feel about false rumors, if I would ever use them in my games. I don't know. I don't know if that adds to the adventure.
Well, the thing about this false rumor is that it is kind of partially true. So if you read that rumor, it has to do with the sphere of power, and there's a big spoiler at the end of the module about what the sphere of power is.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so it says... So the false rumor is that it was Martek who first managed to contain the terrible efreeti and now storms in combat over the desert. It is said that Martek used his sphere of power to do the deed. So obviously the sphere of power is like a Pokeball or something that he caught the efreeti.
Right.
Which is funny because, like, that's a false rumor, but your players are here... Like, in the introduction, your players are here to get the sphere of power. So your players are kind of here for a false rumor. Because that's...
Right.
So the game starts you with a false rumor, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to, like... I mean, he talks about it later on the module. I'm sure we'll get to it, but yeah, that's kind of the part of it. It's sort of interesting. And, I don't know, it's sort of... Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, there is a... The sphere of power is actually a Pokeball that you use against the genies. He invented Pokeballs 15 years early.
Yeah, if only they marketed that and put it into, like, some kind of, say, animation show.
Yeah, or the biggest franchise of all time.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't need to talk about sinkholes. Oh my god, dude, I so want to say Sky Sea. So the Sky Sea. So Kyle, what is the Sky Sea? Because that's like, you're going to spend a lot of time here, and it's a big part of the map.
Basically, it's where all the sand is turned into glass. Not sure how it happened, but, the desert, it's sort of a normal everyday desert, as if that was a normal everyday thing. And then all of a sudden, it sort of turns into a sea of glass. It is where all the sand is turned into glass.
Yeah, so it is the assumption that at some point there was a magical, I guess, nuke or explosion here that was so hot that it turned this area into glass.
Right.
Which I don't know if that's how glass works, but I guess.
Well, there's a whole thing about how when lightning bolts hit the desert or hit sand, it turns it into glass.
Okay.
It'll turn it into glass. So it is how you make glass is through sand, heating up sand.
Right. I mean, I know that from Minecraft, but is that how it works in the real world, Kyle?
Yes, it is in fact how it works in the real world. When they want to make mirrors, they will basically take sand, and the silica in the sand becomes mirrored. So
it doesn't really go into why this is the Sea of Glass, assuming Martek did something at some point. It tells you that there was a magical, really hot explosion here at some point. And the reason it is called the Sky Sea is not because it is the sky, but it's because when you look at it, it reflects the sky because the glass is so deep. So it actually just looks like the desert ends and you're seeing sky in front of you. And in the previous modules, there were rumors about that. Like, there's a rumor that says, like, in another part of the desert ends and it's just the sky forever, which is, like, true, but it's not.
Right.
It's partially true.
Right. So
one notable thing about this is if you walk around on top of the glass during the day, it will bake you.
Yes.
So
it's not a lot of damage, but basically, like, there's like a percentage chance, I believe.
Yeah, so during the daytime, characters on the glass will take 1 point of damage per round from the scorching heat, and a light for every 10 feet they are from the shore. So
right.
You can't walk on this glass unless you have some sort of fire immunity. Like, it's impossible. you will die.
So you will probably be doing all of this at night. You'll probably be walking on the Sea of Glass at night, unless you have some other way of traversing.
Right, which in general, traveling in the desert at night is better than traveling during the day. So that's like a thing that your players will probably be doing anyways. But obviously, like, they're going to get here and realize, like, okay, there has to be a way around this. And a part of what they're going to see is, first, let's talk about the random encounter table here. Because one is the purple worm. So it has the encounter from the cover of the book.
Right. And it comes out of there's a little part of the glass that's been broken, and so the worm comes out of that, which I think is kind of a cool little touch.
Yeah, it's definitely like, if this happened to your players, would be a fun surprise. Like, oh, the purple worm will also break through the glass. It doesn't care. There are, it also talks about skitter crabs, which I love when D&D does this. It just adds, like, just basic animals that are part of the ecology. I looked up skitter crabs. They are not anywhere else in D&D. They're just in this adventure. I can't find them anywhere else. So they're just
That's amazing.
Crabs that skim the surface of the
sea of glass
looking for food.
Looking for food.
And it says
that's all they are.
Skitter crabs do not exist anywhere except on the Sky Sea.
Yeah, and who knows? Like, if there's only one skitter crab, they're probably just not going to get anywhere near your party. Because they're going to be like, well, that's not soft food. But if there's 10, they may try to attack you.
So in my search for this, just trying to find, like, if I see a monster I had never heard of before, usually my first question is like, is this the first adventure it showed up in? Is it anywhere else? And there's been some fun monsters that have only showed up in specific adventures once. I did look up the skitter crab. The skitter crab does have a page on the Forgotten Realms wiki, and it was written by, I've noticed this name in like a bunch of different stuff we've looked at for our modules. There's a user on the Forgotten Realms wiki called Italian Carsis.
Okay.
Who has written 5% of the Forgotten Realms wiki, and essentially most...
Good for them.
Yeah, good for them. I definitely appreciate it. But it seems like they've done a lot of old modules. So, like, shout outs to people updating wikis. I just wanted to kind of call that out because I just thought it was great that this person is updating this information for us. Even
that is their hobby.
Yeah, made a page about skitter crabs for me to be like, oh, okay, it's just this one adventure. You could also run into spectral minions, which are new for this module. They are Thune dervishes that are, I guess, caught in limbo. Well, not limbo, D&D limbo, but they are long dead, essentially ghosts, who are, it says, they are on the Sky Sea in search for a new god to worship, and they are cursed to stay here by the god they worshipped before.
Yeah, they're kind of like just traversing across there, and if the party like messes around with them, they'll attack them. But if they could just watch the spectral minions go, which is also kind of a cool thing too. So they could just sort of watch these spectral minions just move across the Sky Sea and just leave them alone.
Right, and it's weird. Well, when I say weird, it's just like the characterization of them is like a little different than the characterization we got of the Thune dervishes, because it says they came here looking for a new god to worship, and that doesn't match with the other Thune dervishes we've met before.
Right.
Granted, they have probably been here for a long time, and maybe these are the ancient Thune dervishes, but that struck me as a little weird. I might have changed that to be they're protecting this place or something like that. If I was right.
Yeah. But maybe he had maybe he has a whole history of Thune dervishes, and this is just early Thune dervishes were worshiping somebody, and now they don't. I don't know. Well, no idea. But it's sort of an interesting thing.
All right, so let's talk about. I know you want to talk about the glass pirates with these chaotic evil pirates with their hypnotic stare.
Yeah, it's great.
What's up with the glass pirates?
So the glass pirates, you basically see a sail on the horizon, and this is probably the first time that you'll see the sail ships. So obviously, the first time you get to see them, and they're a bunch of pirates, and they want to attack you, and you can't use fire-based attacks against them. So no fire, because they've obviously been hanging out on the, in the fire for a long time. And they are robed skeletons, which I think is great. A bunch of robed skeleton pirates are coming to get you in a skyship.
Yep, it doesn't really give you that much information on them either. And the ship that they are using is called a Cloud Skate. It is depicted on the cover of this module. It has a kind of like sci-fi looking ship that skates on the top of the sea of glass.
Yeah, it's totally cool. I mean, I want this encounter to happen every single time that you have this adventure go on, because you want to have this crazy ass bunch of skeletal pirates coming on a skate ship to come and attack you, and you're like, what the literal what is going on? And they communicate telepathically. They don't talk.
Yeah.
And then they're really actually there to capture you and take you to the cursed city of stone.
Yes.
So they're going to try to, and it's actually kind of beneficial if they do. But because that's sort of where the adventure starts, if I remember right. But yeah,
the Cursed City of Stone is the requisite part of the adventure where they're like, we didn't expand this, make your own dungeon.
Yeah.
But it is close to like the other stuff in this adventure. I will say what I really like about the Glass Pirates is a thing that I really like what D&D does, where it's multiple layers of weird. So it's like,
yeah,
okay, well, there's a glass sea. Well, how do people get across the glass sea? Well, obviously they do it on these cloud skates, which are like magical sci-fi boats. Okay, who's on the sci-fi boat? Well, it's an undead pirate. Okay, well, obviously they are skeletons in robes. So what are they doing here? Okay, well, they want to sacrifice you essentially to this city. So they're going to capture you and take you over there and like tie you up there. Like and they communicate telepathically. So it's like multiple layers of D&D weirdness, which is like,
yeah, it's great.
What I love about D&D is when it does that.
Yeah, this is like just perfect. Like, oh yeah, no, skeletal pirates. Let's just do that. It's like, was he smoking weed? I mean, we know he doesn't because he's a Mormon, but still though.
Yeah, I was gonna say he might have been high on a Pepsi at this point, or a Coke.
Right.
Like,
no caffeine.
I don't think our LDS boy Tracy, I almost said Tracy Morgan again.
Tracy Hickman. Yeah.
We could presume that Mr. LDS Tracy Hickman was not smoking weed at this time. Maybe experimented a little bit, but
no, probably not.
It's just this is the type of thing I love about D&D. I love when it.
Yeah, no,
it's weird.
It's so great. It's like I love every single piece of that.
And it's the type of thing that just like fits naturally in D&D for something like this to happen. They don't really give you much information about the Glass Pirates other than they are presumably undead and they want to sacrifice you to like the city.
Right.
That we'll get into later. All right, so there's some kind of interesting stuff on the special encounter table for the Sky Sea. There's a different special encounter. The first one is the Wanderer. The form of a beautiful woman in white flowing robes appears on the Sea of Glass. She will treat you kindly, but flame strike you if you try to attack her. So this is an adventure where you could potentially get hit by flame strike a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of flame striking going on in this module. Well, she points you to Martek's tomb. So, and tells you that unless it gives you a lot of stuff that you need to know. Like you need to have the star gems. There's no hope if you're not in Martek's tomb, which they kind of hint at, but she also says like, hey, that's the way to Martek's tomb. Go that way.
Right. This also gives you it gives it out to the DM to be like, oh, my players are wandering around randomly. They run into the Wanderer. You could just pick that. Yeah. And maybe it's like a little bit of a trope in Tracy Hickman's writing to have an NPC point directly at where the adventure is. It sounds like he doesn't like...
Yeah.
I don't think he's very interested in... it's funny that these adventures have place like a hex crawl, place where you could wander around, even though the writer doesn't seem that interested in allowing like you doing that.
Too much of that, yeah. You only get so much.
That seems like the appetizer of the adventure, and Tracy Hickman only wants you to eat so many mozzarella sticks before the main course comes.
Yes, exactly.
So, that's just a thing I've noticed about his writing, is that he definitely puts backdoors in there so that the players don't wander around too much.
The spectral minion is also another favorite, because this time the spectral minion is not going to just walk past you. It just attacks you. And it's only one of them, but it just attacks you. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it has pretty low AC at 2. It is HD3, but it only does 1d6. It's going to not going to do that much.
It's going to get killed pretty quickly, but it's like, it's just one of those things like, well, you better be on your toes, because you might just have a spectral minion that just wants to kill you.
Yeah, I also wonder, I'm sure, and maybe I'll look this up and edit it in later, but it doesn't mention anything about it being a ghost and you having to have magic items or something. I wonder if that was a thing that showed up in later editions of the game.
Yeah, I think there's always, we had the ones we've read before where they had to have magical weapons to attack them, but maybe the spectral minions just aren't that ghosty.
Yeah, it kind of says that they're kind of ghosts, but they're not really. So, I'm sure it would tell if you needed magic items, but they are lawful evil.
Yeah, it is lawful evil.
Another random encounter, you could run into a dead party of adventurers who are scorched in because they got caught on the Sea of Glass when the sun came up. And they have a readable map of the Sea of Glass in their one of them has it in their backpack.
And they've marked the location of Martek's tomb. So another thing you can throw at people if you don't want to have a wanderer, if they ignore the wanderer, like they get a group of dead adventurers and they actually get a map and it says go here.
And then we have the ghost ship.
Oh my gosh, the ghost ship is great.
The ghost, everyone's familiar with the ghost pirate, ghost ship trope. But this is that with a cloud skate that just approaches you, and because it's motionless on the glass, you can approach it, I should say. So I'm just going to read this because it's good. If the players board it, the ship itself will attack them using its own beams, ropes, and davits. The davit being the crane that is on the boat that is used to pick things up. It says it will chase the PCs even if they flee in their own ship. So there's no getting away from the ghost ship.
Yeah. It hates them. The ghost ship hates you.
It can be exorcised or destroyed by taking 60 points of damage.
But it will not burn. It is immune to fire.
Yeah, so basically, the players here will need to find a usable cloud skate or they're going to have to explore completely at night. But the problem is, if you do it completely at night, I don't know, you might get caught in the middle of the sky sea when the sun's coming up and get baked. So you're probably going to want to find your own cloud skate, and this might be a way to do it, like getting the ghost ship and exercising it and then using it. But yeah, essentially you have to find your own cloud skate to easily get across this, because it says when you're on the cloud skate, you could go around during the day without it being affected by the heat.
Right. You really want one of these. I mean, come on. You want a cloud skate. I mean, come on. We all want one. We want to go travel across a sea of glass on a cloud skate. We want that. That's what we want. That's why we bought this module.
The players are going to want that immediately when they see it. You can just show them the cover of the module and say it's this thing.
You need this.
So on page 8, we're getting into more of the locations around the Sea of Glass. So this has the Oracle Shrine of Martek, which is a pillar of stone that is in the desert that has markings on it. Interestingly enough, this Oracle Stone doesn't have the rest of the 30% chance of reading, which, also presumably there's spells that will allow you to read stuff, so you could ignore that maybe. But so this Oracle Stone, when you place one of the stars, there's basically a hollow place in the obelisk itself, and when you place one of the star gems in it, the stone will speak out loud. So, sorry, to clarify, I got confused on that. So there is a 30% chance of reading the actual text that's on it. The text above it, which is in the same font, which is why it confused me, is if you put the gem in, it will talk to you.
When you place the star into the stone, it speaks out loud and says, Martek and his sphere of power to retrieve, this is your quest and destiny's decree. An ancient prophecy of doom and death that men of courage should face without regret, to his mighty temple tomb against the shores of the sky. That mighty monument of his life and passing you must find and enter. Gain the gem before you take the power to glow whence pointed towards Martek's towers, where if survives those here assembled, it shall be your finest hour. Basically get all the gems and go to the tomb and put them all together and win.
And there's a 30% chance, or, use magic or whatever to read this. It says, in its appointed time shall man arise from his ignorance and reaching for the stars offer them in wisdom. So reaching for the stars is like kind of a hint that the tomb might not be exactly where you think it's going to be.
Yeah, it's like I said at the beginning of those demiplanes.
There's also a area with grounded cloud skates. So essentially they're kind of like crashed in the ground and you can uncover them.
And then you have one.
Yeah, this is probably the easiest way for you to get a cloud skate that doesn't involve fighting some pirates or fighting a ghost ship that's trying to kill you and exorcising it. I think exorcism shouldn't be something that this is a decently high level module, so exorcising something shouldn't be that hard for a cleric to do. And then we get to the Cursed City of Stone. So the Cursed City of Stone is where the
pirates take you.
So basically what they want to do, they don't want to kill you. They want to kidnap you and take you to the Cursed City of Stone and leave you like tied up outside. The pirates don't go into the city because they believe it says the pirates believe that powerful beings live in the obelisk in the city square. So they basically will tie you up to stakes on the outside of the city and leave.
And they're hoping that basically you'll be sacrificed. But if you're not sacrificed when they come back, they make you walk the plank.
And it also, and you will be walking the plank into an oven and getting baked, essentially.
Yeah.
Instead of into water, which is like kind of interesting. If your character had to walk the plank and got baked alive in the Sea of the Glass, please email us.
Yes, that would be great.
So this part of the adventure, it basically says, you see this in some of the modules. It says like, hey, the DM can expand the adventure by making their own map of this place. And it gives you like what the pirates think is going on in the city, but it doesn't actually say that that's like canon of what's happening. So the DM can kind of use their imagination here, or just say what the pirates believe is false.
Do with that information as you will. Hopefully, you just killed the pirates and who cares?
Also, just to note, like Tracy Hickman does seem to be like one of the nicest writer, like as far as like on the PCs, because it says, for the player's sake, it should not detract too much from the play of the adventure. Remember not to do anything that will make it more difficult for the PCs to finish the adventure. So it's like, hey man, I know you want to kill your players, but like, be chill.
Yeah. Stop killing your players.
All right, and then the Pillar of Martek, which is like the really important part of this adventure. So it's a lone monument of 3 crystal spires that rises straight and true from the desert sands. So, and then it says 2 forked prongs spread out from the top of each crystal, like the wings of a mighty phoenix bird.
Ooh, foreshadowing.
So there's 3. Yeah, exactly. So there's 3 of them. And does the party have 3 of something?
Yeah, if only the party had 3 of something. What could they possibly have 3 of?
I am a little confused. So they have to hit this?
Yeah, so they have to hit the spires.
Right. Okay. So it's
any item.
Right. So the things on top is like a tuning fork, which is kind of hinting. So the PCs here have to hit these at like full force to make the tuning fork vibrate and make noise.
And if you do that, guess what?
So if you hit these pillars and you make the tuning fork vibrate, it says to read the following out loud. As the ringing tone on the crystals get louder and louder, the air starts to shimmer around you. Suddenly overhead, the sky ripples in waves of clear light. The sky seems to open up, revealing one of the largest structures you've ever seen. It is made of crystal. Its size is astounding. It looks like it is 6 miles wide at the base and floating 500 feet above you. There are 6 elegant minaret towers on this building. The legendary tomb of Martek was here, in the open, all these centuries. A pillar of light suddenly comes down from the building and covers the gray marble part of the platform. So, it turns out Martek's lost tomb is a UFO crystal that is invisible in the sky above you this entire time.
Yes. 6 miles wide.
Yeah, that is huge.
Yeah.
Like, the actual city of San Francisco is 7 by 7 miles.
Yeah, so basically, like, the city of San Francisco appears above you.
Yeah, so the city of San Francisco appears above you. It makes a glowing, crystal light bridge to teleport you into it.
Yes.
So just another weird thing that's going on in this adventure that I love, but it really it just kind of messes with your expectations, because this entire time you're like, which is, we'll get into that further, but it's like, oh, we're looking for the tomb, and it's actually a UFO essentially.
Yeah, it's like a giant UFO in the sky. And then, if you go to, there's also this 30% chance of reading these, writings that are on each thing. Mm-hmm. We've talked about that before, that maybe it should just be 100%, or maybe you should just hint that everyone has comprehend languages or something, so that you can read these, because it's kind of like, well, why do I have these things here if I don't get to read them? And you kind of want to give everyone the most clues as possible.
Yeah, and it's also not only that, but it's also like, when I run D&D, if there's something that a player could just repeatedly do, and they will eventually do it, just let them do it. It's a waste of time to let them roll 30% over and over again. Well, presumably it's going to be each player once, but I think reading this at this level is probably not going to be that hard with like magic items and spells and stuff.
So there's 3 spires. The first north spire says, "My name is Martek, and rising here before you is the tomb of my body. From here shall be my sphere of power, be called forth in the appointed day from beyond death, and bring salvation to the desert people." So I think this is important, because maybe this is how everyone started thinking about the sphere of power. When it comes to Martek, because maybe they read this and like, oh, right, that must be an actual sphere, which we'll get to.
Right. So the adventure basically says, like, a lot of people have been talking about the sphere of power. You've been hearing about it from rumors and from people in like probably the Oasis in the previous adventure. The next crystal spire says, "The mighty crystal spires rise around the entrance to my tomb. The bearers of the gems of stars must carry them to me and thereby gain their prize."
And the last spire says, "Only once each day, when the crystals sound, the way will be made clear. You have but knock to enter." So if you don't get in there now, you won't get in there later. Get away today.
Yeah, and that is a hint that you have to knock. You have to hit the spires to make the tuning forks go off.
Yep.
It means knock quite literally, in that you must hit the crystals. And then we have art of a rugged, handsome barbarian guy with a flail hitting the one of the crystal spires. Very like stereotypical Viking character there. I like it.
Yes, it's great.
Okay, and then the entry. Okay, so this takes you.
So if you don't hit the spires, and you're like, oh yeah, there must be some kind of tomb underneath all of these spires. There is in fact a tomb underneath the spires.
Yeah, so there is a small, I guess I would use the word micro dungeon, where if you go down below, there is a golden door, and there's this whole like wall of lightning that will appear if you interact with the disc. It is a false tomb, so it is a trap, obviously. And then there's a secret door that if you open, it fires a spear at you for 1d6 damage. And there's really not much you can do with this tomb, because it's fake.
Yeah, and there's a sarcophagus in that tomb, but it's empty. So you go down there, you're like, you didn't figure out that you needed to hit the spires, so then you went down into the little tomb thing, and you're like, well, this whole tomb is empty. Like, what do I do?
I wonder if there's any. I doubt it, because the adventure is very much into the players, the DM intervening and helping out the players. But I do wonder if there's any group that like got to this tomb and was like, "Oh, I guess it's nothing. Let's go to find another adventure." And the DM was like, "I can't intervene because I'm the DM."
Yeah, probably.
I have to be impartial.
You suddenly smacked something smacked the spire, and suddenly this light opens up. Like, what?
Suddenly, the ghost of Amon Ree shows up and points to the sky and says, "There's a crystal UFO up there you can't see." Okay, Kyle. So if you go, our adventurers have hit the pillars with the weapon, started the tuning fork, and then the UFO shows up and makes a light bridge. And then you step on it, and it teleports you into the next part of the adventure.
Yep.
The Garden of the Cursed.
Yep.
All right, so
it's a mile wide, just so you know, to give you a scale of the idea. This garden is a mile wide.
Yeah, so you're in the Garden of the Cursed. So your players step into the into the light and expect to be taken to a tomb with like sarcophagi and stuff, and then they end up in a garden. It does note that you can't teleport out of here, so you're basically, it's a one-way trip. You're stuck here. You can teleport within the garden with teleport spells, but you cannot teleport out of it. So you are stuck here once you come in here.
Yeah, I kind of love this whole piece. So I guess because they start you out with the preface about this is that, there's a garden. The thing is that people have you obviously don't need the stars to get into the garden. So a lot of people, or enough people, have gotten into the garden that it started its own sort of ecosystem and society. And so he basically like, hey, so the preface of this is like, okay, so you're going to have a lot of NPCs to run. And this starts to get complicated because there's factions and there's stuff. So this is really cool.
Yes. So faction alert, we have to deal with two factions here. So people have made it into the tomb, but they can't leave. But the problem is this is a garden that has like fruit that you can live off of. So this is actually like a very nice place to live because it's temperate. There is a night and day cycle. The garden glows, it darkens, like it says the garden glows and darkens as if, day and night is still happening. And the trees around the garden grow fruit that people can live off of. So people over time, over thousands of years, have gone to these pillars, have made it into the tomb, but they didn't have the 3 items that the party has to continue past this part of past the garden. So after generations and generations, there are 2 groups here, the Mad Dogs and the Guilders.
I love it. So continuing on page 11, you also have random encounters, and we get back to one of my favorite things, which is the grenade palms.
Yes. So yeah, you could randomly walk into some grenade palms, which briefly showed up in Pharaoh. So imagine a pineapple tree where the pineapples are grenades that explode. It's
awesome. So you also, there's a lot of trees out here that you can get some fruit from, and you can actually, they'll heal you. They will heal you for 1d6 damage. So, you sort of have like magical healing fruit. So a lot of people probably can live here for a long time. You also have grenade palm.
Yes, and the random encounters, it does have the Guilders and the Mad Dogs in here. The only thing they really have to deal with, it looks like giant tarantulas and giant scorpions are living in this garden as well. But other than that, these 2 factions are kind of at war with each other. And you can run into the various like leader NPCs of both the Mad Dogs and the Guilders.
Yes.
And to just get into that a little bit, the Mad Dogs are paladins and good warriors that got stuck here. And if you read the back of the book, they have forgotten the word paladin, and they think that they are palatines. Like, that's the word that they use, because they've been here.
Why we included that detail, I actually don't know, but he wanted that to be a thing.
The back of the book, it does bring this up, and we did talk about this in Dwellers of the Forbidden City, which is a thing that I don't think would be in modern adventures, or it would just be implied and never actually strictly talked about. But it does essentially say that these people have been stuck here for generations, and because of that, they have been inbreeding with each other. And that is why, one of the reasons why they have forgotten the words. And it does kind of say you're supposed to play them, except for like the leaders of the factions, you're kind of supposed to play them as being dumb, and this is why.
I don't know. It's very 1980s kind of weird.
It's Texas Chainsaw Massacre fear, right?
Yeah, it's sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 80s fear of like, if we have some inbreeding, they're all going to be just monsters, completely
right? Like, monsters
and less intelligent, and that's what happens when people inbreed. And why we know that, yeah, it's a little problematic, but whatever.
Yeah, it's just like it's problematic in that it's just not like a great thing to include in your fun D&D adventure in the evening, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just like a thing that's like maybe better to be implied than actually straight talk about it. But yeah, the idea is that it would probably just, you could just say that they've been here for generations, and because of that, all this knowledge has been forgotten, and that's why they don't know anything about the outside world. So that's why they come off as dumb. Like, that's another thing.
Yeah, it seems much more like, why do we need to talk about the inbreeding when we could just say, like, they don't know about the outside world. All they know is this world. And so they're very ignorant of most things. And so they'll call things differently, role play that up. of like they don't really understand. They've changed the wording of things or the pronunciation of things, and that would be a much more interesting way to talk about that.
Like, to give an example, one of the things that they believe in their I guess it would be like their religious doctrine is that the Grandal is like their goal, but that is them, the word Grand Hall being like over time turned into Grandal.
Right. Which is interesting.
They've lost this knowledge over generations. And I just think that like it's kind of funny because D&D wants to simulate a lot of things, but there are just obviously things that they don't talk about. Like I don't read the Keep of the Borderlands and go like, oh, where are the latrines at? How do they use the bathroom? Like there's certain things you don't need to talk about in D&D, and I just feel like that could have been left out. And it definitely would have been in the new adventures. Like they've covered this in Curse of Strahd, and they changed it to be like, if this happened now, they would have made it like the garden magically changed them, is what they would have done. I guarantee that that's what they would have done.
Yeah. But I mean, you could also just say that they're just ignorant. We don't really need to talk about.
I mean, I'm a mature adult that could read this and handle it. But, of course, it's just, when you're having a fun D&D adventure, it's like that might not be a great thing to think about to include. But anyways, so the Mad Dogs are paladins and warriors that got stuck here. And they're kind of good, even though they've lost the mission over generations. And the Guilders are called that because they are formerly the Thieves Guild.
Yeah.
Thieves Guild members that got stuck.
So they are thieves. They're essentially, quote unquote, the evil faction.
They are also, the book notes that they are all level 12 thieves. So they are...
I know, that's amazing.
They are really good at thievery, even though they don't know anything. They've never seen the outside world.
Yeah, they're 12th level thieves.
And there's a lot of them. So when you get to the village of the Guilders, there is 88 of them in the city. And it does say that the leader of the Guilders does know about the gems, and if he ever finds out that you have them, will immediately have everyone try to steal them from you.
Yes, right. At 12th level thieves trying to steal them from you. So... good luck.
If you do run afoul of the Guilders, you do have the Mad Dogs that will help you. So there's kind of like, because they're at war with each other.
Right.
So you could kind of play it that way. So there's the dais of receptions. That's kind of where you show up. And whenever you show up, it gives a loud bong sound. So everyone knows that like a new person showed up in the garden. And it has a 200, and the stairs leading up to this are 200 feet from the ground. So it's like kind of a, you show up and you just see this massive garden. Like, obviously I think this was constructed so you show up and you can describe like this massive jungle garden area. And your players are like, what is happening? I'm supposed to be in a tomb.
I was in the desert, and now I'm in a garden, in a jungle with water everywhere, and like what? And a village and all sorts of stuff. There's a special encounters table with the actual leaders of the factions. And so there's Trificus, who's a human wizard, Paunus, who is a drow elf thief, and Sardok, who is a human thief. And then they talk about the village master Bandic. So those four are part of the Guilders. And the first three are people who have gone to you have been teleported here, just like you've been teleported here.
Somewhat recently.
And they've somewhat recently. So they know about Martek, they know about the Sphere of Power, but they don't have the gems.
Right. And they're stuck here because it's a one-way trip.
Right. So they're here, and they thought they were going to rob the tomb. And obviously they found out that the tomb was this garden. And so they've joined forces with Village Master Bandic, and they are now part of the Guilders. There's a leader also who showed up and has joined the Mad Dogs, who's named Percivalus, who's actually a paladin.
Percivalus is such a good paladin name.
Right. It's like the best name ever. So you may, during your just walking around the garden, you may find the actual these actual leaders of, and it's important because, again, if you mention you have the stars, and most of the time, like, the stars are glowing, you're either holding them out, there's all kinds of ways in which they can find them. Any one of those are going to want to steal those because they know that they need those stars in order to progress within the dungeon or basically get to the whatever next step there is. So
right, and not only do they want to escape, they also want to, at least the thieves want to raid the tomb.
Right.
So it's twofold. Like, they want the treasure and they want to escape.
Right.
Because it does talk, like, they are the only people that know about the outside world. The people who who have been here for a while, the world to them is just the garden.
You're right. And they know they need to, and all those people know they need to progress to the next level, but they know they don't have what they need to do that. So it's a very interesting sort of play on all this stuff. Like, you're going to show up at the reception and the garden is here and there's water everywhere. And, And as you're going to meet you may either meet them through the random encounters or you'll meet them while you're traveling around, inside the garden.
Yep. So the goal is the Grandal, which is Grand Hall. There is a majestic twin door that is 30 feet wide and 100 feet at the top. So it's a massive door. And there's an altar there where you could place the stones, and you have to say the words Mo Pilar, Shal Pilar, and Khan Pilar loudly. If you don't, if they are spoken out of order, you will also there will another opportunity to get hit by a flame strike.
Right.
And it does tell you, if you go down to, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, I-9, the obelisk of the ancients. So it is a obelisk, and it says, "The day shall come when men of valor enter the garden and bring with them the great star stones. This has been foretold by Martek in the times of light. They will place the stones in the altar and recite their names from opal to red, and then clear by finally uttering Re. Shall the 1001 doors be opened before them, then will the test of their courage begin." So because of this obelisk, the people in the garden do know about the star gems. At least the people, the leaders that just showed up, they know that's what's needed.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, to say the least, because that's sort of where you want to get to, right? You want to get to that. So you're in this garden with these two factions, with these various people who want to steal the gems from you, because the Mad Dogs want to steal the gems from you too, or at least they want to use them.
Right.
So it may be that any combination of those people are going to try to steal the gems from you, and somehow they might even steal all three and open the doors themselves. And then you also have then a whole other sort of piece goes on as well. So like, What I imagine, like when you go to, say the Trifecus camp, which is part of the Guilders, that's where Trifecus, who's the wizard, and Sardok live. They're gonna be super gracious to you and super nice because they're like, oh my god, another person, thank God, because all we've had is these other people. But they want to steal those gems of you if they find out. And there's a lot of times, like, where either the gems are glowing or, you have them or you're talking about them. And if you do, or they see them, or you just have them out because it's a star of, true seeing, like, of course you're going to want to use that in the garden. And so someone's going to see you using that and going like, oh, that's one of the stars. So yeah, there's a lot of like shenanigans that may just happen in this garden.
Yes, and you definitely want to, and obviously you should read the whole module before you run it, but at the back of the book, when it goes over the Guilders and the Mad Dogs, it gives you the history that they both believe, which is kind of important. So one, the Guilders have the concept of the Steely, which is considered a sacred act that will impress the Master Guilder. It says it will impress the Master Guilder and ensure a place in the Grandal. So basically, to them, like, the idea of stealing something from someone is like an act that will impress, that will get them into heaven.
Right.
And there's all these other words that they're confusing. So like the Guilders use the word Martek for the word world from Martek. And their version of history is like a mixed up version of what's going on in the actual dungeon.
Yeah, there's not a lot. There's a couple places in the garden, but the garden itself is sort of like this menagerie. And then you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to do. And it may be that all of these people may lie, a bunch of them may lie. I mean, the paladins are probably not going to lie to you, but what they're telling you is kind of the truth and not really the truth because they don't know it anymore. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it also has what the Mad Dogs believe. It also, by the way, the Mad Dogs are also all 10th level fighters. So
yeah, they're tough.
They're tough. So essentially, both of their versions of history, they believe, like the Guilders believe they're going to go, like they were sent here by the Master Guilder, and they are like at the halls of the Grandal, and they will go in. And the Mad Dogs believe that some days the door of the Grandal will open, and they will be able to leave this world. So you're like obviously the leaders know that there's other stuff going on, but you're running into this like religious, like these are kind of religious beliefs for these people that you're like stumbling into.
Yeah.
with artifacts that they probably consider sacred, and you have to your characters have to deal with that. This is one of those situations in D&D where I read it and it's like literally the garden of the curse is 2 pages long,
right?
And
it's not very big.
3 pages long, but still, that is like there's so many sessions of play here just for 3 pages,
right? It
is. There's a lot that could really happen, and your players might just show up and kill everybody, but still they're running into this like religious, this weird, basically like the fallout of Martek, like what he's done to this world by making this tomb the way that he's made it has caused this issue where there's these 2 factions, and they now have kind of lost their past, and they believe in that the tomb is some sort of religious.
Yeah. But I mean, you're going to have a hard time going, murder hobo in here because
everyone is a 10th level fighter.
Yeah, there's like 52 10th level fighters. I mean, they don't have the hit points of a 10th level fighter, but they fight as a 10th level fighter. And then the guilders are 12th level thieves. There's 88 of them. I mean, there's still 3 hit die creatures.
Yeah, you're still going to get overwhelmed.
But you're going to get overwhelmed. So you're going to have to play the faction game,
right?
And they're it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out.
When it says fights is a 10th level, it doesn't mean you were saying that they have less HP. I think like what he means specifically is like when they roll to a hit, it's as if they are a 10th level fighter.
Yeah, and saving throws and all of that stuff. Yeah, and saving throws and all of that stuff too. So. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, so there's the Grand Hall, which you're trying to get into. There's also the Mound of the Lawgivers, which had like one of my favorite sentences in this. So the Mound of the Lawgivers is a hill that's covered with stones where the Guilders and the Mad Dogs bring people to stone them to death.
Yes, isn't that great?
Each stone does 1d4 minus 1 damage. There is an endless supply of stone. They will never run out of stone. Just
an endless supply of stones.
There is an endless supply of stones. Made me laugh when I was reading this.
That's great.
Aren't they out of stones?
Still got a stone to throw.
They've thrown 1,000. Nope, there's infinite stones.
Well, when you got a stone, people, you got to make sure you have infinite stones.
How much do these stones sell for? 1 copper? I've made infinite money.
So pretty nice stones.
Yeah, so the Grand Hall, there is actually 1,001 doors, as mentioned by the obelisk earlier. When you place the gems in the right order and say their names out loud, followed by the word re, then the Grand Hall opens. All the 1,001 doors are wizard locked at 15th level. And then if you I6 is the Grand Hall. Yeah, so all of these doors magically open. So there's 1,001 doors.
Right.
It's 3 miles long. It's a 3-mile long hallway.
3-mile long hallway.
And it just basically goes straight north and straight south. And there's no way to open, like, you can't damage the door. It says it cannot be damaged by magical or normal attacks. So there's like no way to get through it without doing the puzzle, essentially. And then you will walk down a 3-mile long hallway. It doesn't say what's in the doors. It just says that they open.
Right.
Oh, okay. I understand. Okay, sorry. I'm a little confused. So the hallway is comprised of 1,001 doors, which all open. And it's just a 3-mile long hallway that's north to south.
Yes.
When I read this, I envisioned the doors were like on the side and there was like 1,001 rooms.
That's what I thought of as well. But no, it is just 1,000 doors open, going in a straight line. I get it now. I get it now as well.
If I was describing this, I would definitely describe it as like they open like dominoes falling down, just like one after another, like.
Yeah.
It's more of a visual thing. It doesn't really matter. But the idea is that like this is really hidden, and even if your wizard is opening them somehow, there's 1,001 of them. Good luck.
Yes.
All right. So after you walk for 3 miles
through a bunch of doors,
yeah, and also you're gonna have to deal with the other 2 factions because there's no way if you open this, it's open. So
yeah. So they're all going to come rushing through, or who knows what's going to happen? I don't know. You the DM decides.
All right. So after we walk 3 miles to the Crystal Prism, the adventurer does know that you have to deal with the Mad Dogs because the final doors for this hallway, it says, if the villagers got here before the PCs. So, like, essentially, if they steal the gems from you, they're going to open the Grand Hall and get here first.
Yeah.
So the PCs might, like, wake up after camping and the gems are gone, and then they go over to the doors and they're open, which is like a pretty interesting way to do it. But essentially, if they got here first, several of them will be smoldering and badly burnt. Due to
J2, which is the Phoenix. So the lore on here says, my monument to Phoenix, good, friend, and true, stands watch over the way to the gate of my tomb. Walk that path straight and narrow. Do not waver or falter, and your chance will be given to come to my altar. And there's not a 30% chance. It's just there. You get to read that. So, because the Phoenix is a problem.
It does the runes magically change to the easiest language for each reader. So if the elf walks up, it becomes elvish. If the dwarf walks up, it becomes dwarvish. But I think that's kind of a cool detail.
It is.
All right, so the Phoenix, when you go into J2, the Iron Phoenix will activate as soon as you're 10 feet into the room. So basically, it doesn't harm you if you're on the path of the passage.
Which is clearly marked, or fairly clearly marked. But if you happen to go off of it, if someone says, hey, I'm just going to go over here, you get to fight a Phoenix. That's very powerful.
Yeah, so it's HD 10. It can make a screeching sound 3 times per day that does 2d20 points of damage due to
all creatures within 60 feet. It regenerates 5 hit points of melee turn.
Yeah, per melee round. And you'll be surprised to find this out, but if you defeat the Phoenix, it will fall into the pit and then come out, be reborn 24 hours later.
So it's a tough opponent.
And it will also, here's another opportunity to be hit by flamestrike.
Yes. There's lots of 3 times per day, of course.
And it also does state that it will miss anyone that's on the right path if it does end up flame striking. So even like if, I don't know, you could talk about like a villager running off to the wrong path and then getting hit by that, and then it like overlaps where the characters are but still misses you.
Right.
But man, Tracy Hickman really likes flame strike. It shows up a lot in his adventures.
There's a lot of flame striking in all these adventures. Basically, like, there's a bunch of pits of fire on either side of the rites of passage, and you basically just want to, and I think part of this is like if the villagers are here and you're here and they're sort of fighting the Phoenix, you could have that be a thing. It also could be like if your PCs are just like, yeah, we just go into the room. Like, okay, well, one of you steps off the rite of passage and suddenly the Phoenix appears and now you're having to deal with this thing. So, or you just, but basically like you're going to be safe if you follow the passage. Like if you do what it says, you follow the rites of passage, you're good. The Phoenix won't mess with you. But you have to go to each one of the doors. I guess there's doors on all the sides of everything. So, yeah, hold on. Let me look at the map again. Yeah, so there's doors on all sides of this thing. So if you stay on the rite of passage, you're good. Basically, but if you, so which is the right door is the one on.
This gets into like a thing that is hard with D&D is when you get into verticality, because there's a disc that lowers you into the cathedral.
Right.
And the cathedral is massive. It's 400. So it is 420 feet from side to side. That's an interesting number. Maybe Mr. Hickman did try some marijuana at some point.
Yeah, because you're basically trying to get to the ring, so that lowers you into the cathedral, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it drops you to a hexagonally shaped room that is 420 feet across, and you go down slowly from the dizzying height of 1,200 feet, finally resting on the floor.
So this Phoenix is sort of like guarding this whole thing. If you use the right path, and obviously have the stars, or maybe somebody else has the stars at this point, because it could be that any of those NPCs could have taken the stars from you, or the villagers, and they're also now using this little disc to go down into the cathedral. So they may already be down in the cathedral as well.
Okay, right. So you have to solve this puzzle, and then it shrinks you and pulls you into the miniature. And then that takes you to the Citadel of Martek. But you can't do that until you have the minarets, which you get from going into the other halls.
Right. So you have to basically like navigate this room, which is going to take you to all of these different areas that you get the minarets from, because three of them are lit because the minarets are already there. And then there's 3 that are not lit. And the non-lit ones are the ones that you have to get the minarets from in order to light it up, so that it lights up the entire crystal prism, so then you can get down until the end of the tomb.
Right. So
each one of these things is going to teleport you to either the Black Abyss,
Yeah, so the exits to the other worlds take you to either the Black Abyss, the Mobius Tower, or the Crypt of Al Olisk.
Right.
And most importantly, there's a hint to this. So at the base of the cathedral, there's writing that says, 6 paths to glory, 6 paths to doom, 6 paths to minarets, the keys to my tomb. Replace the 6 minarets from the places now hidden, and you may then enter to the tomb you are bidden. Be valiant and faithful. There is always a way, and if you survive it, you'll have glory this day. So there are already 3. It says there's 6, so there's already 3, and then you have to go into the Black Abyss, bring 1 back, the Mobius Tower, bring 1 back, the Crypt, and bring 1 back. And then when you put them in the model, it will shrink you down and take you to the last section, the Citadel of Martek.
Yes. So, and if you look on the map, each one that's darkened is the ones where you have to put the minaret. So you may go, like, obviously in the module, they're in order, but you may not be doing them in order depending on, where your PCs go to each one of these areas.
Right, and there's no hint on what each area is going to be like, so it's just they're kind of randomly picking. Like, if I was doing this, I might put a hint. Like, I know in the adventure I read with you, there was portals that you guys went through, and I made, like, the portal influence the space around it, so you kind of, like, knew what was happening. I'd probably do something like that. I like that more than just randomly picking. All right, Kyle, moving on to the next section, section 4, the Black Abyss. So,
oh God.
Yeah, you can tell by the name of this section that it is dangerous. So I just want to read the first 2 sentences of this prologue background here, just to give a little flavor for the Black Abyss. The Black Abyss lies just beyond the guardians of time and space. The Black Abyss is a gash that bridges the prime material plane and the 666 layers of the abyss.
Yeah.
I haven't experienced a more exciting opening sentence since we started this podcast.
Yeah, I do remember reading this sentence like that and going like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. Like this is going to be crazy. And it is. So I will say, as just a preface to this section, this is the section where you, as the DM, will probably be pulling out your hair, and your players will probably be looking at you all the time, kind of dumbstruck and going, what?
Yeah, I hope you did well at arithmetic in school.
Yeah.
This is obviously, I do want to also say this is obvious. I feel like this has to be before the Satanic Panic, just because it says the 666 layers of the abyss, and just putting that in this.
Yeah, I don't remember the time frame of some of that, but there's also the point of like Gary Gygax was like, let's put it in because it's provocative and people are buying more of our game because of it. So
that is true.
I don't think that they shied away from, saying what things are. But, in terms of this whole thing, it is kind of amazing. But it is difficult to run.
Yes. So just kind of starting out, the Black Abyss. So it gives you the random encounter table. This is there's a little bit of a weird thing going on with this, because we'll get into this in a second, but the distance and time is messed up in the Black Abyss because it is bordering on the layers of the abyss, and that is when like the rules of the universe and physics and stuff break down.
Yeah.
So it does tell you that the wandering monsters appear 1d6 times 10 feet from the nearest PC when you roll a wandering monster.
And, it's a 1 in 6, and then so it's a 1 in 6 chance of finding a wandering monster, and then you roll 1d12 on the encounter table, and then there's a special encounter table, which is pretty similar to all the encounter tables we've seen so far. If I remember right, there really isn't anything else in here to deal with in terms of monsters other than the wandering monster.
Yeah, just the wandering monsters. There is some weird stuff on just the wandering monsters. There is some weird stuff on the actual encounter table. Like you can run into a lawful good hero and some neutral good adventurers. But yeah, it's just basically as you're going through this, it's kind of, you're dealing with distance and time and the wandering monsters.
Oh, and your magic may be all messed up.
Yes. So on the actual table itself, we have Zorns, Umberhulks, Troglodytes, Spectral Minions, Odiugs, Doppelgangers. The encounter table also has a Djinn and an efreeti, which are both like pretty strong. So hope you don't run into those.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, you can deal with djinns and efreetis and that you don't actually have to fight them. So you could try to negotiate with them, which I think I would want to do here.
Yeah, at least the Djinn will be more open to negotiating than the efreet.
Right.
So we appear at the south wall, which has an obelisk that you could read, or have a 30%, 60%. Actually, it says this one has a base 60% chance instead of 30% chance. But as I said before, you're probably figured out a way to read these, or your DM has just given up and let you read these.
Yeah.
So you run into a obelisk that says, "Beyond the knowledge of mortal man, the guardians of the world stand guard. They look toward the crystal minaret and watch the path so hard. Beyond the end of space and time, beyond all magic's sphere, where all the world breaks down and chaos does appear. 'Tis there the crystal minaret awaits the valiant day, where men shall walk paths of oblivion and take the key so far away."
And also sort of like preface this, like when you arrive there, it looks like sort of like a little garden. You sort of arrive in a little garden, little area. It looks really nice. It's like, oh, this is kind of like an okay area. Everything seems pretty normal. There's like a statue, stuff like that. You probably can hang out here, and you'd be okay. But as soon as you start stepping through, you're basically kind of stepping through a cavern. And, it just becomes crazy after that, and crazier as you go more and more into this sort of cavern-esque sort of area.
Yeah, and the trees and the like vegetation just suddenly stops.
Yeah.
And then it ends in a cliff that drops. It says it drops straight down into clouds. And then there's like a path of a rock.
So, and it's sort of hard to, we're trying to sort of frame these 3 pages of like how it sort of works, because there's no monsters or anything, but and there's a lot of, each room has a little piece where you talk about each part. So like, you basically like, oh, you're like sort of in a mid hall, and then you go to Land's End, and as soon as you get to Land's End, everything drops away, and suddenly like it's the wind's blowing, it's like crazy, and as soon as you get out of it, it's hard to walk, and then as soon as you get past that, the first sort of distortion happens, is I guess the best way to describe it.
Yeah, so the way it describes it, if you look at the map, and it even tells you how this works in the book, it says the distance that your characters have to walk is 120 feet across. So they technically have to walk 120 feet across. However, there is it's kind of a trap, but basically distance is distorted here. So as soon as the players step in this area.
Yeah, and remember, the wind is blowing, so you're slowed down.
Yes, and at the beginning of each turn, so every 10 rounds, you basically roll on the distance distortion table, and that tells you how far it's distorted. So you roll a 1d8, and a 1, everything is 10 times closer, and then 8 is everything is 10 times farther. So it's like increments. It goes 10 times closer, 4 times closer, 2 times closer, no changes, 2 times farther, 4 times farther, 10 times farther.
Right. So like distance is shrinking and expanding every 10 rounds.
And so the way that it works is you roll on the table, and then you record how close everyone is. So let's just say, for like, to make it easy, there's 2 characters that are 10 feet apart. So I would roll distance distortion, and I roll an 8. It says everything is 10 times farther. So what that means is that the 2 characters are actually 100 feet apart instead of 10 feet apart now. And you would multiply what is it?
Each hex becomes 10 times bigger.
So the hex size is 120 feet across. So it would become 1,200 feet across.
So so whatever your movement rate is slowed down, and you're moving at this low rate, and it may be some rounds it's larger and some rounds it's smaller, and sometimes the people around you are close to you, and the ones that are they're further from you.
Yeah, so obviously this is very confusing. It does give you an example, which I'm grateful for, because I feel like
Yes.
just a person reading, like, obviously, you know, in the 80s, you couldn't just be like, how does this work? I'm going to go on Twitter. Like, you just had this book. So It gives you an example, which is really nice. That it gives you an example of like, hey, these two characters are next to each other, and it gives you all the distances, and it says like the DM rolls a 7, and this is how he calculates what goes on. So not only are you dealing with the distances, you are also dealing with like random encounters, which is why it says when you roll a random encounter, it tells you how close it is, because that might matter for the distance distortion.
Right. And so, you know, you're in the middle of this encounter. There could be, I don't know, you're fighting some doppelgangers, and all of a sudden the doppelgangers are right next to you, or you actually collide with them, or they spread out and now they're super far away. So it's the beginnings of chaos. Like, this is chaos, but we haven't even, just wait, baby.
Yeah, we're on step 1 of 3. So it does also tell you, because inevitably characters are probably going to tie themselves together with rope, because rope is, you know, your best friend in AD&D. And it does tell you that, like, if you do that, the characters don't separate, but they can get pulled closer together. So that's probably, like, what most people are... I would think what most people would eventually try to do.
And you may fall down if you're tied together and you hit each other, you may fall down.
Yeah, and if you fall down, it does say you lose your next turn.
Yeah.
So it's not just, like, you know, 5th edition where you just stand up. So eventually you will walk through the distance, and then you will get to K4, which is the time frame distortion. So you're dealing with distance, and then now you have to deal with time being distorted.
Both of them are going on simultaneously.
Yes. So the time distortion, the time distortion is separate depending on each character. So each character rolls a d6 and then you follow the table below. So you're going to be on a 1, you're very slow. On a 2, you're slow. 3 and 4 is normal. 5 is fast, and 6 is very fast, which gives you a bonus on how often you can attack, or a penalty if you're slow, and makes it easier to move and hit.
And the monsters are also affected by this. So if you're, again, have a bunch of random encounters, the monsters will also be sped up or slowed down depending on what's going on.
Right, and you use, at the beginning of each turn, you use the time distortion. So at the beginning of each turn, everyone rolls their time distortion, and it could be, you're dealing with distance distortion as well for everybody, but you can have one player be very slow and another player be very fast. And
really super far away from each other all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it does tell the DM to, like, keep that idea, like, keep that in mind. So, like, for instance, the very slow person will see a normal and very fast person. To them, the world looks normal, but everyone is moving fast. Whereas a very fast person will see a very slow person moving slowly.
Yeah, it's almost like someone read some stuff about special relativity and said, like, hey, what if special relativity was a game?
So yeah, you have to keep track of, like, on every person's turn, you have to think, like, okay, this person's moving this fast and everyone else is moving this fast. I don't think it's going to be that hard, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
This is probably going to be a long encounter.
Yeah, and especially because you're doing it on each character and each monster. So that becomes very tedious of, like, oh wait, are you slow or are you fast? So it's almost like you want to give people the numbers. Okay, you rolled a 5 and you rolled a 3 or whatever for your those were both normal. So you're completely normal. So you just tell them, okay, let's keep track that you rolled this and you rolled that, and those are your numbers. Keep track of your numbers. And so, you're normal. And then as things go on, it's like, oh no, you rolled a 1. Okay, well you're, now everything is, you're super close to each other, and you rolled a 6. Okay, well now you're really fast. So you're really close and fast. But when other people see you, this is how they see you as well. Like, they're going to see you that, oh, you're super close and super fast. It's crazy.
It is. There's some, like, very potentially bad things that can happen. Like, for instance, I'm looking at the efreeti right now. He has an attack. His attack does 3d8, which is, like, pretty high for AD&D as far as, like, a physical attack. And let's say you got that random encounter. You were really unlucky, and then he got to be very fast, which means he would get 4 attacks at plus 2 to hit, on top of being an HD 10 creature. Like,
yeah, that is why you want to negotiate with that efreeti if you can.
Yeah, he will make like, you're pretty high level here, but with those numbers, he can make someone into mincemeat, like, in one round. Just
Yeah.
so yeah, some potential bad beats here, but like that's kind of, I think that tension can be a little bit of exciting, or the DM can decide not to do it if they think it's too bad.
And yeah, so basically you're traveling, you're trying to get through all of this, you're now slowed down, and maybe the distances are getting higher. I mean, it could be complete and utterly weird chaos stuff with each person all over the place on the map. As well, because they're like, oh, now they're closer, now they're further, now oh my gosh, okay, what's going on? And we decided it's not enough for just those two things to happen, but now your magic is going to get distorted.
Yeah, so when you reach K5, so you're dealing with the distance distortion, the time distortion, and the magic distortion, which is if anyone casts a magic. So first of all, magic items do not always work. So there's a 50% chance any sort of magic item that has one ability will work. And also, if you cast a spell, you roll on the magic distortion table, which is a D8. And this table is kind of interesting. So
it's pretty fun.
Yeah. So on a 1, it says clerics and druids roll a D8 and magic users roll a D10. And then that is the level of the spell that is actually cast. And then the DM rolls randomly on the spell table, on the spells. If that's the spell that comes out. So if, let's say you cast Magic Missile, you get distortion and you roll a 1. You're a magic user, so you roll a d10. So you roll a 10. Well, in this case, it would be a 9. Then instead of Magic Missile, a random level 9 spell comes out.
Right. You decided to cast a wish.
Yeah. And there's also number 2. It says the spell in the player's handbook under the spell they tried to cast happens.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too. On a 3, it's the spell listed above it, so in alphabetical order. And then, yeah, same thing with 4. 5, the spell just doesn't work. 6 and 7, it works normally. And then 8, the spell, you do it on yourself, basically.
Yeah. So you cast Magic Missile on yourself.
Yeah, or Fireball yourself, or whatever.
Or Fireball, or remove Curse. I don't know, whatever it is you do.
This probably feels like the easiest one to deal with, because like you just don't use magic. And
unless you really need to.
Yeah, unless you really, really have to.
Because you could roll 6 or 7, and then it casts normally.
Yeah, and there's no real indication. It doesn't. You don't walk in and it says like, you can't make a check and determine that something's going on. I think like if one of my players had detect magic on or something, I would let them know. But there's no way to ascertain this until someone actually tries to use a spell.
Yeah, so it's gonna be somebody casting a spell for sure.
Yeah, it does hint, and it says the air is, there's a slight shimmer in the air, so like there is something going on. It does tell you, but until you actually go to cast a spell, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, so it's really about like, oh my god, I just cast Fireball and it hit me.
And keep in mind, this is happening with all of these happening simultaneously, and you're potentially getting random encounters, and you'd like just want to get through this as fast as possible.
And you're being slowed all the time and sped up and moved away, so it's super crazy.
Yeah, and if one of the PCs gets slowed down, the other PCs might have to wait for them to be able to actually move. So you could get some pretty unlucky rolls here. Like if I could see the same player just like keep getting slowed over and over again, and everyone else just waiting for them to not be slow anymore.
And then you get to K6, which is also equally confusing.
Yeah, so once you get out of this, essentially there is an island of crystal, and in the center of it is the crystal minaret, and there's like roiling chaos of like land masses that are forming and breaking and forming and breaking and forming and breaking. And once you get to the island of crystal and you get the crystal minaret, this is a little weird. So there's like a vortex below, and you have 1 round to fall into the vortex. And if you do, and someone has the crystal minaret, then you were just teleported back to the beginning. If no one has it, or you go into the whirlwind 1 round afterwards, it says you are trapped in the abyss forever.
Yeah. So, and I mean, even getting to the island is a little bit funky, because if you look at the map itself, there's no path. There's just like, it looks like a big swirling thing of chaos. So they're sort of saying like, you start, there's like a rock that's going to like move you over there, and all this time distortion is happening. So like, I guess the rock sort of takes you over to there, but it could be slowing down and speeding up. It's very confusing exactly what happens here. Because, like, there's the island, and you want to get to that, and then the chaos, which is, like, when you're actually falling into the abyss.
Yeah, so
you have to... It's weird.
Yeah, so if you read where it says play, it says... So they call it the breakdown, because it's basically saying, like, solid ground forms, and then breaks and falls off. And then it says... If the PCs watch the rocks that break away and fly into the storm, they will notice that all of the large pieces bump against the island before hurling down into the whirlpool. So the idea being the players are supposed to get on one of the rocks, let it break away, and then fly towards the island, and then get onto the island, and then get the minaret, and then at that point they will get into the whirlpool. Into the vortex, I should say, not whirlpool.
Right. So in theory, we all sort of like get onto one of those pieces, and then it flies next to the, and I don't, it doesn't say, hey, you got to make a check to see if you get over there or anything. It just sort of like, I guess you just sort of get there. So, okay.
Yeah, I think it's like, I think this is like a case of if the characters describe what they're going to do, like, I'm going to stand on the rock and wait for it to get next to the island and then jump on. You just kind of let them do it.
Yeah. And then, and obviously then once you grab the minaret that's on the island disappears. You're in the chaos vortex. And then, but then, if you had if one of them has it, then everyone gets teleported and you're safe.
Yeah,
is what you want.
And basically, once you grab the crystal, the island explodes.
Yeah.
And you fall into the vortex. So the only time this would be a problem is if the players were separated, because then you would enter the vortex after the minaret left, and then you would fall into the abyss. So,
and then it teleports you back to the crystal prism. And now you have the minaret, so then you can put the minaret into the area whatever area it's supposed to go into. There's 3 areas, and one of them is not lit. So one of the not lit areas, you got to find which one that is, and then put the minaret into there, and then it lights it up, and you can go on to the next. You got to get another minaret. So
I do want to read the bad ending though. If you fall into the abyss,
it's great.
Because this is great. So it's called Chaos. And this is what you read, essentially, if a player falls into the vortex after the minaret. This is the bad ending. So it says, you are falling at a terrifying speed. The wind blasts you in gust. The glowing clouds all around feel damp and clammy. Ruby-colored lightning streaks past, barely missing you. You're being tumbled head over heels into the center of the storm, still falling. The whirling clouds spin into a single hole of nothingness. There is no light, no dark, no time or space. The spiral storm spins towards the plains of the abyss ahead. You feel yourself being pulled further into the abyss to be trapped forever. All right, so we got the minaret. We're back. So the next section is the Mobius Tower.
The other piece that I wanted to talk to is that we forgot to talk about is that any of the village people, like the people from the village, the characters, they could also be here as well. So, Trificus, Piranus, or Sardok, those are the PCs that, or not the PCs, the NPCs that are...
The leaders.
Yeah, the leaders of those factions could also be here trying to do the same thing and taking the minaret. I think this one, it specifically... he doesn't really mention it that they're there, so I think this is the one that they probably don't want one of them to be there, because obviously if they grab the minaret before everybody else does, oh no, he does. Okay, yeah. So they're you may be racing against time or against these other NPCs to get the minaret in this area. Yeah,
it talks at the beginning that at the beginning of this section that the players might be chasing one of those NPCs, which I feel like if that's happening, you'd want to make it fun and not like, hey, you guys got lost into the abyss forever, because your party got slowed down and they got sped up and they moved really fast and they got there first.
Right, and they get it and they're out and like, okay, well, that sucked.
Yeah, also presumably the players are much smarter than those people because they're, paladins and thieves and you have magic users and stuff on the team. So they might get stuck at the breakdown and not understand what they need to do next. That's kind of how I would handle it if they got there first. Is I would have a showdown at the rocks or something.
So now we're in the Mobius Tower.
Right. So the Mobius Tower is also kind of a time puzzle. It's a little different. So there's no random encounters here, but there are some kind of planned encounters. So the way this works is it's like a tower that has 4 different levels, and there's like a magical stair loop thing connecting all of them. So it says that there's no upper or lower level. That's just like all connected magically.
Because that's the idea of the Mobius part. It's all connected, but there really are 4 different layers.
Yeah, so like you can keep going down and you'll just repeat the 4 layers over and over again, or keep going up and you'll repeat the 4 layers over and over again. So this whole thing is weird. So the entirety of the Mobius Tower is stuck in time. So there's like kind of a scene being played out. In every room that you walk in the scene is frozen in time. And this kind of teases you because when you first arrive, one of the first rooms that you're in, you see the minaret sitting there on a pillow, but you can't pick it up because it's frozen in time.
Right.
So it explains that objects they call them time locked, I think, time trapped. So everything in here is time trapped and it cannot be moved unless you find the Medallion of Time, which is in this tower, and then you touch the Medallion of Time. If you touch the Medallion of Time to something, it will become untrapped in time and time will start moving normally.
So ideally, you're going to grab the Medallion of Time, touch the minaret, and then you will have it.
Yeah, so there's this whole plot here. So as you're like moving through this tower, there's obviously some sort of like, there's a sheik and there's an assassination plot going on where when you go into the sheik's, I think it's, yeah, so in the apartment of the sheik on page 20, so when you walk in the room, there's a heavily hooded figure with a bow in the south door of the room. And on the bed asleep is the sheik, and suspended in midair a few inches from his head is an arrow. So it's like in the middle of an assassination attempt that time is frozen.
Which I think is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the idea of figuring that out. Like the idea of like a scene being trapped in time and having to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
I don't really think that there is a little bit of an assassination plot here.
Yeah, because a bunch of them are in cahoots, like different people who are frozen and not frozen were in cahoots to have the sheik assassinated. And you'll sort of meet some of them.
Yeah, so there's like a ghost that you'll meet as well. But yeah, I think they could have like I would have liked to go a little more into the assassination plot and having to figure out having to figure out what happened is not related to the puzzle. Like, you could just find the medallion, go touch the minaret, not care about anything else, and leave.
But I mean, some of the monsters are not time traps, so you have to like deal with them in each room.
Yes, so some of the monsters, there's no random encounters, but some of the monsters in the room you do have to deal with. Specifically,
Crypt Knights.
Yes, Crypt Knights. There's a ghost. There's also the Guardian of Time. Right? That's here.
Yes. There's a mummy, there's an efreet and a djinn, more ghosts, and a bunch of Crypt Knights, which are a new monster. Basically, they cause fear all the time, so they have, like, continual fear on them. But they're actually, and they're 8 hit die monsters, so they're pretty powerful. Yeah, you got to deal with them.
And then the boss monster is the Guardian of Time, one of the Guardians of Time. Which is an HD 12 monster that has the medallion around their neck.
And basically, you have to defeat the Guardian of Time, you get the medallion can then, in theory, get you your minaret.
Yeah, and then...
But you have to go through the tower, the last section, which is the Tower of Time, to get to the teleport area to teleport out.
Yes.
So you can get the minaret, but then you also have to go through this very last part, which has a bunch of traps. And then, like, the Tower of Time, the part of the level 4 is where you have to, like, get through all of those traps in order to get to the teleporter to get back to the crystal prism.
Yeah, and then one of the interesting one of the traps is that there's light coming through the ceiling, which is it says that the light streams down like a liquid. Kind of.
Yeah.
And if the players plug the hole, then everything in the tower suddenly comes to life. So if you haven't dealt with the arrow, then the sheik will get an arrow in his head. And all the assassin will be active. The other thing that I thought was really funny is that there is in the Tower of Time, there is a hourglass in an alcove, And if you turn it backwards, it will rewind you in time to before you entered the Mobius Tower, and any player that died will come back.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. So, like, if somebody died in here or whatever, you could sort of reverse it and they'd come back to life.
Yeah, so presumably, like, you know, if, because, like, some of the fights are pretty hard here, so if someone died, you know, that would be, like, a really cool thing to discover, like, oh, I turned the hourglass, and now we're like, everything, like, it, you know, like a VHS tape just rewound, and then we're standing there, and, you know, John the Halfling is alive again.
And also, when you get through all of that, there's the Tome of Time, which is a very powerful book that has haste, slow, dimension door, distance distortion, pass wall, teleport, disintegrate, limited wish, permanency, temporal stasis, and time stop. So, real powerful magic item.
Yeah, it's a spell book that has all of the time-related spells in the player's handbook.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea of a scene being frozen in time that the players have to figure out. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah, I really like that part.
I wish it like went a little more into it, and like the solution was related to that, not like you go through and fight a boss and then walk out.
Well, it's not just that, because you have to fight the boss, go back to that room to get the minaret, and then you have to get down or up, depending which way the Mobius is going, to level 4, and then get through all of the tasks that are in level 4.
True. I guess what I was saying is that I wish it was like related to whatever's happening with the assassin and the sheik. And it's kind of
that would have been cool. Yeah, that would have been way cool.
Also, I do really like the art of the on page 23. There's art of two PCs plugging the light hole in the ceiling, and they are about to have everything come back, become unstuck in time, and have a real great time.
Yeah. Hopefully they already have the minaret at that time.
Yes. Now we're moving on to section 6, the Crypt of Al-Ilisk. And
again, also with the previous one, and then this one, you may be having an NPC that's doing all this stuff too.
Yes.
Or multiple NPCs.
So the wilderness, basically, this is another demi-plane. It says it says this area is in an unknown subdimensional bubble. It's a desert. The Desert of Al-Ilisk. Yep,
You're back in the desert. Yeah, you go back to the desert.
This does have random encounters, so there's spectral minions, wights, wraiths, and more spectral minions. The first thing you run into is a crystal obelisk with runes that can be easily read, so no percentage, and it says, "Touch me to the crystal minaret, and I will bear you home." So, obviously, that tells you what you need to do.
Basically, like, M3 is where all the guys are walking. So you show up at M1, and then all of the people, you know, depending on which way you're going, you know, you'll get to see the other pieces. So like,
yeah, this is decently big. Like each hex is 2 miles. This is like 32 miles across ish.
Yeah,
so this is like 32 by 32. So it's like a pretty. This is like a pretty big subdimension thing that you're in.
And basically, like, if you go, you'll see, I think it's at night, right? Yeah, every night from midnight to 3 a.m., like, you're traveling through the desert, and you'll see all of these, like, lancers, these, like, kind of spectral minions that are all headed in a certain direction. And there are 1,000 of them.
Right. So once again, like another like NPC kind of pointing the way of where you need to go. Right. Tracy Hickman does not want people walking through the desert aimlessly.
What's interesting, though, is that if you go the opposite direction of where they're going, there are some ruins, and you can and that's like the very end of the module. But basically, like, if you decided, okay, well, because it puts you kind of in the middle, and if you decided, like, well, I'm going to go the opposite direction of these spectral minerals, you'll go to ruins, and the ruins are like not something that he's created, and he's like, you can create that if you want, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, which is another area for the DM to insert their own dungeon. I do think it's interesting in M3, basically like there's visions for PCs depending on if they're good or evil.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. But yeah, they have different visions of each one.
Yeah, so if it's a good or neutral PC, you will be visited by a beautiful oval face with large soulful eyes.
And gives you this tale.
Yeah, a short monologue. But basically it says that the woman that her name is Sithal al-Hasun, She was betrothed to the love of her life, and she was stolen away on her wedding night by like a person who was in love with her, in which she like obviously didn't have any feelings for this person. And she says like, I now await the coming of my father's lancers with my love, but my captor is strong. Please free me of my imprisonment. So basically that's where you have to go to get the minaret, is to free her. If you are evil, you will get a vision of a man who has a red and terrible face, and he says, I warn thee and all with thee, get thee hence from this land. The battle to come is between me and Althus Aldun, and none of thy concern. If thou wishes thy life, get thee hence. So the woman will approach the good and neutral PCs, and the man who stole her will approach the evil NPCs. Or sorry, evil PCs. There is a puzzle that I kind of don't understand, the revolving tomb.
Yes, so basically, like, you follow the spectral minions to where they're at. There's a spectral minions that are actually guarding the entrance to the actual crypt. You have to go into the crypt to save the princess, basically. And that's where you get into this very strange tomb.
So there's this, like, revolving tomb puzzle where there's basically, like, 8 different places that you could go. And it like, when you enter one place, you leave in another place, and it tells the DM like where that is, which is like a very video game thing. Like, there's a lot of video games that have those like teleporter puzzles. Pokemon loves those. They're in a bunch of Pokemon games. But it's just kind of funny to see this kind of puzzle here because like it's something you see in video games. It will eventually take you to the Crystal Tomb, which has the princess that approached you is, there's crystal pillars surrounding her, and she is inside a crystal cylinder, and it says that a tear halfway down her cheek is like frozen, and it says a small crystal minaret sits at her knees. So she's like encased in this crystal cylinder, and you have to figure out how to get to it, which is breaking all of the pillars around her by dealing.
And then once you break the pillars, obviously she's free, and she's like, oh, I love you so much, you're the best. And then the spectral minions go away.
Yeah, so one thing I noticed about this, and I mean, she's in like another dimension, so this is probably not it, but I'm pretty sure, so where is it at? It describes her eyes as almond.
Mm-hmm. It says her lovely oval face has large dark eyes.
So I'm probably like...
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Maybe he just likes this description for a presumably beautiful woman's eyes. But on page 25, when you break her out, it says, as the crystal shards cascade to the floor, the figure of the princess inside crumbles suddenly to dust with a sighing sound. A heartbeat passes overhead, the air glows blue, and the soft lines of a beautiful face with dark almond eyes forms above you. So it describes her eyes as almond, and now I'm probably like, this is another dimension, but in Pharaoh on page 8, do you remember the pool that you look into and it answers a question for you?
Yes.
Do you remember that? Okay, so it says, a set of sultry almond eyes will appear in the ripples of the pool.
Huh, interesting.
Are they, both of these ghosts have almond eyes, or is that supposed to be this ghost? I don't think it's supposed to be this ghost, and maybe that just is the type of eyes these people have, but I remember them saying that.
Yeah, I guess it's supposed to be slightly Asian. I don't know. Feels a little on the racist side, but whatever.
Well, but yeah, it's just, the word almond eyes, it made me think it's probably not the same person.
I don't think it's the same person, but I think it's like kind of saying that Middle Eastern people have almond eyes, and that's a thing, or maybe almond eyes are beautiful in Middle East. It's a little bit on the like, what's going on? It's a little racist. What's going on? But it's all right. It's 1983.
Yeah, it's 1983. We don't like describing things in this way, but
we don't do it now.
Moving on.
I love the brass ball Liahona. That's an intelligent compass.
Yeah.
The fact that there's an intelligent compass, basically that like it'll telepathically talk to you and tell you like which direction is north. It also has locate object, and will answer one yes or no question for its user per week. So it's an intelligent compass that will answer a question, cast locate object, and tell you where north is. And it's worth 10,000 gold.
Yeah, that's an interesting magic item. I do like that. Like, I do appreciate something that answers a yes or no question.
Yeah.
There's spells that do that in 5th edition, but I do like that it's just like a thing that kind of helps games move along.
And the crystal minaret is here.
And it also says that once lore, should the princess be freed, she will join her true husband in heaven westward. So, like, back to heaven westward again. She's going to go hang out with Amen-Re after you plundered his tomb.
Yeah, apparently.
I don't really need to talk about anything else in here, unless you want to.
Yeah, there's some cockatrices, which could be super fun to deal with. And then...
Yeah, in the cockpit, which is a pretty funny pun.
Yeah, and then in the spirits room is something that sort of really sucks. Basically, like, there's a groaning spirit that if it wails, you have to save versus death or die.
Yeah, I forgot about this. Now, you're pretty high level here, so presumably dealing with death is not as hard as it is in the lower level adventures, but still kind of like would suck to go all the way through this and roll a nat 1 and fail. Although wait, I think nat 1 is good for saves. Don't you have to roll under?
Yeah, 1 is good for saves. Yeah, 1 is good for saves.
Yeah, sorry. Roll a nat 20 and die. I forgot about that. So yeah, you could probably deal with death at this point, but you can't rewind yourself out of death like you can in the other dungeon.
No, and then basically you just have to go all the way back to the crystal obelisk to get out. So you basically like go through this tomb, get out of the tomb, go all the way back on the desert, and basically since you freed the princess and all that stuff, the spectral minions aren't there anymore, and you just go back and press the crystal obelisk and get back to the beginning again, or back to the crystal prism.
Yep, and then once you do that,
and you have all 3. You've now done all 3.
You have all 3 of the minarets, so you could put them into the model of the Citadel of Martek, and then you will shrink down into little people and go inside of the Citadel. And at this part, yeah, so it does have a map. It says that...
Yeah, and it only contains like 5 or 6 rooms. Well, a little more than that, but yeah.
So you get teleported into the Citadel of Martek, and it does tell you this is on page 26, it does tell you like kind of the secret of this module. The PCs have heard a lot about and are looking for Martek's Sphere of Power. The fact is that artifact never existed. Originally, Martek's Sphere of Power meant the wisdom, learning, and magical knowledge that Martek had.
Yeah, so spoiler alert, that whole Sphere of Power thing wasn't a thing.
Yeah, so it means like, it's like the way you would say like Sphere of Influence. It's like a metaphorical thing, not an actual magic item. So it's not a Pokeball, Kyle, I regret to inform you. So there are random encounters here, but it basically just says like if you show up here with the star gems, things don't.
Yes, if you openly display the star gems, if you have them out. Remember, you've been trying to hide them from the people stealing them from you, but if you have them now, you need to display them. And if you do, all these crazy things that are in here, mummies, necrophidius, cockatrices, they'll leave you alone if you have the stars out.
Even the giant tarantulas will respect you here if you have the star gems.
Most respect. Respect me, tarantula.
And the poisonous snakes, they'll just stare at you.
Yeah, they're just like,
Granted, they're magic, so whatever. So this, so you have worked through 3 modules, so you get this is kind of like the victory lap you get to take. Like you are basically done fighting things. You walk into the Tomb of Martek. So you go through the entry hall into the Tomb of Martek.
So the thing I do want to point out, like you get through the entry hall, which is not that big a deal. There's a fountain of water where basically you can heal yourself, which is great. And then the tomb is interesting in that, so again, none of the monsters in this tomb are going to attack you if you have the stars. If you have the stars, then like you can get jumped by any of these creatures. But if any of the NPCs were here, like if they've been following all of this and they're there, they basically are hunched around ready to attack you at the Tomb of Martek. Because obviously this is the end of the adventure. And if they're still alive and they've been doing stuff and they've been traveling to all these different places and whatever, and if they've actually been able to shrink down or whatever happens, they're there and they're probably going to attack you and try to, do whatever. And like some linear combination of like they have stars and you have stars and, who knows what's actually going on there.
Yeah, the DM should have a plan for what's going to happen at this point.
Yeah, so basically, like he's saying, like the NPCs are gonna jump the PCs at this point because now it's like kind of the thing. If not, and none of those NPCs are there, and the PCs happen to not have the stars, then there's 4 Kryptonites, and you have to fight the 4 Kryptonites, which aren't easy to fight. So, and 10 spectral minerals. So, like if those are all there, you have to fight those 2. But if you've got the star, you're good. If not, then there's the NPCs are there, and you got to fight them.
Yeah, doesn't it say they don't attack you if you have the stars?
Yeah, if you have the stars, you're openly displaying the stars, they will not attack you.
Right, and the other thing I do like is it says if if the leaders are not here, the person hunched against the north door is actually a dead person who died from a heart attack after seeing the treasure in the end of the dungeon. So this person got here somehow and then saw too much gold and treasure and then died of a super panic attack or something.
This is basically the two. So we're about to end here. So, in the middle of a vast dark area, a single pillar of light shines down from the immense dome overhead. The shaft of light strikes the top round platform, 20 feet above the floor. Stairs rise up the sides of the platform. The crumbled bones of a man lie on the top of the platform, bathed in the brilliant light. A metal headpiece on the skull of the bones reflects the light into 3 beams. Each beam strikes a great statue in this room. As your eyes adjust to the darkness, you see that this is a tremendous circular room, 160 feet across. It is 100 feet to the top of the dome ceiling. There is a hushed silence. 4 sets of golden doors lead from the room to the 4 points of the compass. A small dark figure is hunched against the north side of the doors, which would be an NPC, or it's going to be the dead guy who saw the treasure.
It also, it is going to be pretty obvious what the PCs have to do here, but the beams of light that are converging on the person in the center, which is it's Martek. Those beams of light are going to 3 statues that are 30 feet high, and they appear to be djinn wearing turbans, and in each of the turbans there's a slot for the gems. So it's the same size as the gems, so obviously like your players have to get up there and then plug the gems into each one of these statues. Once the players do that, which is not a very hard puzzle to figure out, which is, we're in the victory lap room, so we don't need to make this hard. Once the players put the star gems in each of the turbines, Martek will be brought back to life. And it reads as follows. As the last stone is placed, a dull throbbing starts to build. Suddenly, with the sizzling sound of lightning, the pillar of light splits into 3 beams from the ceiling. Each beam shines on one of the gems set in the statues. The gems reflect the beams from one gem to another, forming a huge triangle of light around the platform. Moaning sounds of wind stir the bones on the platform. With a flash of light, the ancient bones of Martek rise up and spin into a blur. When the spinning stops, a live man stands upon the platform. Martek himself has risen from the dead back to life.
And Martek is super happy about that.
Yeah, so it says he will thank the PCs wondering what took them so long. So he maybe has a little bit of consciousness even though he's dead. I think you should play Martek. Obviously, this entire adventure is about Martek being a weirdo and making all of this stuff. So I would play him as a very weird wizard person.
Yeah.
But essentially, that ends the adventure. Martek does say that each PC can take 3 items from his treasure, and he will show the PCs to the treasure room.
There's lots of stuff in there. So I didn't look up all of the tomes and stuff like that, but I know that a lot of these are really good. So they can basically pick a book, a non-magical book or a magical book. Obviously, you want to check a magical book, and then I'm not even sure why the non-magical stuff is there, but there's a list of 10 non-magical books, and they're all parodies of real books. I guess. It's just a joke. Okay. I remember how this works. So it's to search for something is a turn, and he's sort of waiting there for you, and he's like, okay, well, anytime, guys, as soon as you're done, and then you're every turn you're searching for in each room to figure out what's in here, and you may get a magical thing or a non-magical thing, and so if you take too long, he's going to be like, okay, I've got to go, I've got other things to do,
Yeah, so and it's kind of funny because the non-magical books, they're all parody books. So there's Gone with the Air Elemental, Paradise Displaced, 201 A Sea Odyssey, Moby Dragon, Snow Dwarf and the Seven Whites. It's all parody, so it's a little bit of levity after this maybe long adventure. I guess a little bit of levity is nice. So the magical books in his room where he keeps all his tomes, he has a book of infinite spells, a librum of gainful conjuration, a tome of clear thought, and a tome of understanding.
And I don't remember off the top of my head what those do. I think a lot of them are like +1 bonus to charisma, +1 bonus to strength, or +1 bonus to like intelligence or wisdom and stuff like that.
Hey Kyle, in the future editing this, what do all these books do?
Stop time.
The Book of Infinite Spells is somewhat of a strange magic item. It has 22 plus D8 pages of random spells. Each page has its own spell, and you roll on a table to determine if the page has a spell or what kind of spell it has. And then if this book is open to that page, the owner of the book may cast that spell if they are a magic user. And once that spell is cast, the page turns, and you roll for a new spell on the next page. Once the last page of the book turns, the book disappears forever. The Librum of Gainful Conjuration allows a neutral magic user to advance to the midpoint of the next level if they study it for a week. The Tome of Clear Thought increases intelligence by 1 if it is studied. And the Tome of Understanding increases wisdom by 1 if it's studied.
Time begins to move.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. And then there's also the scrolls, which have a list of birthdays. Visit beautiful Barovia. Interesting that Barovia is mentioned in here for Ravenloft.
Yeah, well, they wrote... Tracy Hickman wrote Ravenloft, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Martek for Shaw. So being the Shaw, being the leader. And then obviously like a bunch of like polymorph, scroll of 7 spells, protection from undead, a bunch of scrolls stuff, which is the actual treasure.
Yeah, and then the treasury is probably going to be what the characters are interested in that aren't magic users. So N6, the treasury, the following is neatly stacked in this room. 9,300 copper pieces, 6,400 electrum pieces, 17,100 silver pieces, 12,400 gold pieces, 2,250 platinum pieces, 2,100 GP gems, a wand of fireball, a potion of clairaudience, a +2 sword of 9 lives stealing, a crystal ball, a +5 shield, a suit of +1 scale mail, +1 morning star, a sword of dancing, and a ring of protection.
Yeah.
+5 shield is nuts.
Yeah.
That's so much. Nothing is hitting you if you have a +5 shield.
It still does. Trust me, it still will. But yeah.
Okay, most things.
Most things are going to start.
It's definitely a big advantage.
Yeah, it is a very big advantage. And that's it.
Yeah, so you're at the end. So basically he takes you to... So basically he lets you take the treasure and he goes to deal with the efreeti. But he takes you to the... Where is it? The trans-dimensional door. Which is a smooth white wall. There's an interdimensional teleporter. You have to say... There's a weird thing about... Oh, yeah, so it won't work until the magic words are spoken, which is in the lore there at the bottom. It will show a picture of whatever place the person is standing in front of is thinking, and then each time the 4 words are spoken, it will reset to a new place. And it's like a one-way teleporter. And there's an interesting note here. So first of all, the lore, there's a... Yeah, so the lore says, Turnin, Millink, Garifek, Jek, words of power, here we speak. You are not lost with the gems of stars. Bid his return from very far. Replace the gems that once we hid, and light shall form life's pyramid. So presumably you can walk in here before freeing Martek, which like you might want to search around before you do that. But a detail that I thought was really interesting is it says the teleporter is one way, and Martek used this teleporter centuries ago to imprison the efreeti. So this is how he did it.
Yeah.
That's how he put him in the jar, is he used a one-way, the transdimensional door. I don't know if he, like, imagined the inside of a jar and shoved him in it or something, but this is how he did it.
Yeah.
Which is a cool little detail. They didn't have to include that, but I liked that. And thus, that concludes the Desert of Desolation and the Lost Tomb of Martek.
Yes. So there's some more stuff about some of the monsters in the back, obviously. And then, we talk about each one of the NPCs, Trafakas, Panis, Sardok, Village Master Bandic, and Mad Dog Percivalis, which are, each one, you get a little flavor of each one of their personalities. It's basically like they were trying to, like we said before. So there's not really that much to go on with each one of them, but
it's more important when you're it's going to be more important when you're in the garden. Yeah.
Yeah. But then also if they manage to like run around all over the place with you into all those different spaces, then yeah, you kind of want to have a little bit of flavor with them. I don't think that they can really like by themselves. I'm not sure exactly how they survive, each one of those areas, but, sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can have like, there's like 80 guilders in the city, so he could take like 10 guilders with him, or
yeah, you could, yeah.
The Mad Dog could have like 10 fighters with him or something. That's probably how I would do it. I guess whether or not I just, you never. I think the garden is the biggest question mark of like how that whole thing happens. So at least like the author is like aware of that and gives you a lot of like notes of like, oh hey, by the way, Sardok might be here, etc.
Then there's more stuff about basically the Medallion of Time, which you really can't do anything with because it only works in the area. In the Mobius Tower, the Tome of Time, which actually is pretty cool because it has all those spells. It's worth 20,000 gold. And then, they go over the Star Gems again. We've already talked about them. And then the optional ending, which is if you've actually done all of the all 3 adventures now, you get the optional ending.
All right, so we've gotten all the way to the end of the Desert of Desolation. This is the optional ending of, essentially it's saying like this is the ending if you did the way to conclude the entire Desert of Desolation series. There's a lot here, but I'm going to read it off because I think I really like the writing, and I think when you get to the end of the adventure, it's nice to have this little wrap up here. So I'm gonna go ahead and read it now. When the PCs step into the teleporter in the room, you read the following text. A brilliant flash surrounds you as you step into the wall. Blindingly white light softens to a blue color. You are inside a bubble of soft glass, turning slowly. Nearby, you see the other members of your party in their own bubbles, also floating through a blue mist. Martek's strong and powerful voice speaks into your mind. Behold the prophecy fulfilled. Look upon the fruit of your courage and determination. The blue mist starts to change into sky. The vast Desert of Desolation stretches out, 1,000 feet below you. Your sphere flies quickly towards huge billowing clouds on the horizon. After only a breath, you are in those clouds, safe within your floating sphere. The clouds suddenly part. You are floating above the center of a raging battle storm. Eraldoth, the Djinn Vizier, stands like a giant on the desert sands. His upstretched arms command a gale of wind and ice. Not far from the Djinn, the evil efreeti calls down wave after wave of flame and lightning. A small, lonely figure suddenly appears between the efreeti and the Djinn. It is Martek, robes flowing in the wind. Martek taps his staff upon the ground 3 times. 3 thunderclaps, like voices of doom, ring across the desert. The wind and flames stop. The efreeti looks down at Martek in surprise and fear. Martek speaks. Calithrius, I call upon thee by power in thy name. The day of thy doom was prophesied. So shall it be. The voice of the efreeti rumbles like distant thunder. Martek, are you here now, or is this yet another of my fears come to me in a dream? Leave me to my vengeance. Martek answers calmly. Nay, efreeti, no mere bauble for thee this time. Thou hast wasted thy powers upon the desert and this good Djinn. Thou hast nothing left to fight my command. The efreeti raises his arms in anger and fear. His horrible screech pierces the clouds. Martek too raises his arms. As Martek speaks again, the fiery efreeti bursts into a million streaks of flame, darting madly through the wind. A horrendous crash of wind and thunder throws desert sands about your bubble, blocking your vision. Your bubble is moving again, and the desert sky is changing into the soft blue mist once more. Martek's voice comes to you again. The desert is returned to its people. The efreeti is no more. One final gift I give to you. Those people that cast you into this desert land will no longer remember you. You are once again free to travel the face of this world as you want. All to whom you tell this tale will believe it to be a fable. Only you shall know the truth of what you have seen. There are yet other prophecies to be fulfilled. Farewell, my friends. The blue mist suddenly flashes into white. For a moment, you are blinded. Then the sphere of glass is gone. You have arrived in the place pictured on the wall in Martek's citadel. Okay, Kyle, so we've gotten through the entire Desert of Desolation, 3 modules. What do you think? First of all, what do you think about the Lost Tomb of Martek?
I sort of low-key love it. I think it's a really neat adventure. I don't really want to run it as the DM, or at least I want to run parts of it. The time one, I just think is going to be really tough, but I think I'd probably be willing to weather through it just because, I think a lot of this is super fun and clever, and there's a lot in here. I enjoyed it. I mean, I was sort of excited about reading through it and finding out that it's basically just like a Mad Hatter's craziness. What is going on here? And it sort of fits that you've had these characters for, hopefully you've been playing all the way through with all your characters, and now they sort of get back to something that feels a little bit more, that's just something a little bit more special than just like deserts and djinns and efreets. Now it's just like this crazy ass place that this wizard created, and it's great.
Yeah, it's definitely not what I expected. I talked earlier about how I was like, oh, there's going to be more like Egypt, and maybe you fight Set or something, or like a giant statue of Set or something. But no, that is not where this adventure went at all. I do appreciate that it had the way that it ended. I do kind of like a weird wizard adventure of just like, here's a wizard who did a bunch of stuff. I do wish that Martek was, he's mentioned in the first 2 modules, at least in the Oasis of the White Palm more.
Yeah, more in the Oasis than Pharaoh.
I kind of wish he was used more in the other 2 modules. It would have made this feel a lot better. But I overall enjoyed it. I do think there's going to be a certain amount of hand waving in certain parts. Like the time distortion thing is cool, but you might have to hand wave part of it if it ends up being too much to manage.
Because there's so much randomness in that, and then it's also there might be a tough time visualizing how the Mobius Tower works, and then also just probably giving clues to make sure you follow the spectral minions, make sure you sort of because you kind of want to get people to go through stuff, so there's a little bit of hand holding you may need to do.
I do think the Mobius Tower was the weakest part of it for me. I just don't. I kind of wish there was a little bit that was a little tied together better. But overall, I do like this. This has the least wandering around aimlessly in a desert of all 3 of the modules. It definitely gets you into the action pretty quick, and it gets you into the you go almost immediately from walking around a desert to sky, almost undead pirates on ships that glide on glass. It just gets really weird almost immediately.
Yeah, and and then also there's this giant fight in the sky between 2 behemoths just fighting it out, and you're okay, just ants on that, and then you are the ones responsible for actually freeing the people from that. So that's kind of cool, and you get that flavor, and you have to do a lot to get there. And it the bends and twists and turns are sort of what I love, is that you're okay, we saw some pirates on the Sea of Glass, and now you're in a giant skyship in the tomb in the sky, and it's an oasis or a giant garden. Like what in the world?
I do appreciate that the third adventure is the second and third adventure are the fallout of the adventurers from the first adventure.
Yeah. It's all connected together in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, like oops, we freed a very evil thing that wants to destroy civilization, and we have to like fix that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish like this was tied together. Like the theme of the whole Egypt adventure kind of gets dropped a little bit in the third one, and I kind of wish it had a little more of that, and I wish 1 and 2 had a little more of Martek. I think it would have tied it together. But when they were writing Pharaoh, they were doing it. They were printing it, binding it together on their kitchen table. Like they had no expectation that it would be this like triple adventure module. I'm sure.
Right. Or if they maybe thought there would be a triple adventure, but like they didn't have a roadmap, or anything like that.
So I can't hold that against them. But if I was running this after reading all 3 of these, I would definitely put more Martek in module 1 and module 2, and maybe some more Egypt stuff in module 3 to kind of like tie it all together a little more. But I think this is like a really interesting adventure path. Like I would have really liked to play this for sure.
Yeah, I would have liked playing it for sure, and maybe running it, but playing it would have been super fun.
Yeah, this is as far as the adventures we read, this granted this is the first like module path that we've read, but this is like I think some of the my favorite stuff that we've read thus far on this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Like this feels like it's a real adventure that was written by people who knew what they're doing, or at least had a clue. I enjoyed it.
So, and when you say that, we're looking back at this from 2025, and it's pretty obvious, like reading this adventure versus the other adventures that we wrote. Like we're looking back in time, and we're looking at these, and we're seeing like from reading modern things, we're seeing like what these adventures. What carried on into the future, and a lot of Tracy and Laura Hickman carried on into the future from these modules. Like the way that like characters, NPCs have motivations and things that they want, and they're not just things that are an obstacle to the PCs. That is definitely a thing that is carried forward.
Yeah, and boxes for the description, like you read off the description, like they're sort of helping you so much more as a DM to sort of frame things, and that has definitely kept going in adventures following this.
Right. I will say that like there, as far as negatives go, maybe there's like a little too many words. Like that ending that I read was very long. Like I'm thinking of Amon Ree's monologue that's like a page long. Interestingly enough, Pharaoh was reprinted in 5th edition, and I looked up Amon Ree's monologue, and it's like a fourth of the size in 5th edition. They really pared that down. So, like, there's a little too much talking and exposition that could be like cut a little bit. But other than that, I think the writing is wonderful. Like when you read Pharaoh, it's pretty obvious. Like, yeah, I could see why they would read this and be like, TSR would be like, we need to hire this person.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, that concludes the Desert of Desolation. I had a great time reading this with you, Kyle.
Yeah, this is great.
These were great. So join us next session. We will be reading the module Needle by Frank Mentzer. Thanks for listening. Make sure to follow us on your podcast app of choice and follow us on Blue Sky at adventuresgonemad.bsky.social. Are you enjoying Adventures Gone Mad? If so, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Did you play the Lost Tomb of Martek? We want to hear about it. Contact us at adventuresgonemad@gmail.com and join us next time for Needle.
Both Pharaoh and in White, the tomb of the,
Oasis of the White Palm.
I can't believe I corrected you on that, and now I can't remember the name of it. Oasis of the White Tomb.
The
White Palm. Oasis of the White Palm. Oasis of the White Palm.
If the players board it, the ship itself will attack them using its own beams, ropes, and davits. What is that word?
Davits, yeah. Davits. It's a nautical term, I'm sure. Actually, I don't know exactly what it is.
I'm looking it up and pretending like I knew what it means. All right. I'm going to read that again and pretend like I knew how to say that. That will not make it in the outtakes. That is too filthy.
Too gross.